11 to 1. Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis, with Dave Woloshin, weekday mornings from 10 to 11. It's time for Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5. The first hour of Sports Time is brought to you by Lexus and Memphis. Here are your hosts, Red Stack Sportsworthy and Brian Davis.
Welcome into Sports Time. Brian Landon with you this afternoon. Brett not with us right now. We're hoping he'll be able to join us later. A last-minute, something out of his control incident happened right before the show started. So he hopefully will join us a little bit later, but not with us to start the show. A lot we got to get to this afternoon. A lot of stuff happening over the weekend, including Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Kevin Durant has been traded to the Houston Rockets. Got to talk some baseball. Draft only now a couple days away. DeMichael Cole will join us later in the show. We'll talk a lot of offseason with him, as well as the Memphis Grizzlies and what they will do Wednesday night in the NBA Draft. David Cobb will join us a little bit later in the show as well. Plenty to get to. Landon, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing very well. A very exciting Travelers Championship that I watched.
That's what you were telling me.
Right before the NBA Finals, of course. But it was a really exciting finish. Shout out to John Goen. I don't know how you picked your shock of Keegan Bradley to win, but props to you, man. That was an impressive comeback and an impressive win.
I guess if you like golf and you like baseball and you like basketball, yesterday was a pretty good day for you. I mean,
yeah, fantastic time in sports.
You had the College World Series that started about 1:30. I guess by the time that was ending, you could flip over, watch the end of the Travelers, and then by the time that was wrapping up, it's time to get over to OKC.
Roll right into the finals.
To the NBA Finals. I'll be completely honest, I did not watch any golf over the weekend.
I watched the last day.
Just last day.
Yeah, but
Okay,
the most exciting.
Better than me, I guess. You watched more than I did because I did not watch a second of it. Watched a lot of, watched all the finals last night. Watched a lot of baseball over the weekend. Honestly, I'll be honest, and I know this is going to be I might be in the minority on this one, and you know what? That's fine. I watched a good amount of the Club World Cup over the weekend.
You might be the only one. Good job.
A little soccer action.
How'd that go?
It was good. I bet on it a lot. Won a lot of money on it. So
any updates for us?
No. There's two matches going on right now. But I have no updates on it. PSG's beating Seattle. If that's what you want.
Okay.
Of 1-0 at half.
Now my day's complete.
That is all the soccer talk you'll get today.
Fair enough.
Time. But no, a lot we need to get to this afternoon. A lot going on in the sports world. But I do want to take a second to start the show to talk about the passing of Fred Smith. We learned the news Saturday night that he had passed away at the age of 80. Just, awful news to hear. Really, really sad news to hear. Obviously, what he did for the city in so many different aspects. I mean, what he meant to this city. I was listening to Johnny Radio earlier today when I was in the car driving to lunch, and I think it was Darian him and Darian were talking, and John said something like maybe one of the biggest Memphians ever, something like that. And Darian was like, no, he is the biggest. He is Mr. Memphian.
Yeah.
And I completely agreed with that. Like without Fred Smith and without FedEx, I think this city looks completely different than what it looks like
it absolutely
today.
Does.
And so it's just an incredible life. I was telling Elisha and I were talking about it earlier on Willow and Friends of just if you were just somebody that didn't live in Memphis and you didn't really see what FedEx meant to the city and what Fred Smith meant to the city and all of a sudden, if you just looked at the business model and the idea of FedEx and how he came up with it and turning that idea into what FedEx is today, it's really an incredible story. And it was obviously something that I think most all Memphians are familiar with, living here. You know how FedEx started, you know about Fred Smith and all of that. But, seeing a lot of people retelling that story and seeing people writing about that story and kind of reading up on it again, it really is super impressive of how he just decided, this is a great idea. Let's make this reality and turn it into, I also told Elisha this morning, I think in honor of Fred Smith, it's never going to happen. I think they need to go back to the old Federal Express logo. That is an elite logo. That logo is awesome. And seeing some pictures over the weekend of that was really cool. But no, I mean, just just what he meant to the city. And then obviously it feels weird tying it all to sports because obviously it's just games we're talking about. Like it means nothing in the grand scheme of things. It certainly doesn't mean anything compared to losing a life, but what he meant in terms of Memphis sports is incredible. I mean, getting the Grizzlies here,
huge supporter of the University of Memphis as well.
Huge supporter of the University of Memphis. I want to get to that in a second, but to think about Memphis being able to say we're a professional city, we have a professional team. That's a big reason is because of Fred Smith and what he did, and to say, hey, I'm gonna have the naming rights for FedEx Forum. You mentioned the University of Memphis, his commitment to the University of Memphis financially of this new stadium. He's put a lot of money to the stadium. The NIL that FedEx is a part of with the university has been massive. I heard Johnny Radio talking to Terry Davis earlier today, and they were kind of talking about the idea of, where would Memphis be without some of that financial support from Fred Smith and from FedEx? They certainly would not be where they are right now. They would not be that team we talk about every single year of being, that the best of the group of five. They probably wouldn't be in that category, or at least not as consistently in that category. And so, Fred Smith just meant so much to see. And there's so many more, different aspects. I think it was Jonah Dillon who wrote a couple weeks ago about the Memphis Showboats, and that Fred Smith has been big with the UFL and bringing the showboats, having the showboats in Memphis. Obviously, we know the golf tournament, the FedEx St. Jude Championship, what he has meant to that, what he has meant to the PGA Tour, obviously being a massive sponsor to that. It really, words just cannot put together what Fred Smith meant to the city, to sports in the city. I'll tell you this, Jason Munns has a story over at the Commercial Appeal talking about Fred Smith and what he meant to the sports scene in Memphis. And I think it's a phenomenal story. There are a bunch of quotes in there from not just this weekend since the news. Actually, I'm pretty sure all of the quotes in there are from before this weekend, before the death, but just a lot of quotes in there, a lot of stories about the role he played and what he did. There was one quote from his son that I want to read. This is taking from Jason Munn's story over at the Commercial Appeal. Smith's son, Richard Smith, president and CEO of Airline and International at FedEx, said his father always believed deeply in the power of sports on community. Quote, "Look at your great cities in the U.S. Look at your thriving cities. And they all have vibrant sports and entertainment," end of quote. Richard Smith told the Commercial Appeal in 2023. Here's the end of that quote. "That's one of the great factors, the quality of life factors that contributes to a great city. We think that's very important as far as being able to attract attract people to Memphis and get them to want to stay in our headquarters city." So obviously that sense of, when you have a vibrant sports scene, people want to be a part of that. People want to live there. It kind of brings the community together. A lot of people have posted, a lot of organizations have posted about Fred Smith over the weekend. So, prayers out to his family. Obviously, a lot of friends and family in the city. Prayers out to all of them because, really, and I don't know if they've put out anything around cause of death or anything like that. I was surprised when I saw that news. It was kind of, to me at least, out of nowhere. Saturday night, there was a lot going on, and then out of nowhere, you just kind of start seeing tweets of Fred Smith has passed away. So definitely sad over the weekend to see that, and definitely prayers out to Fred Smith's family and all of his friends in Memphis. I'm sure once we get a hold of Brett, whether that's today or tomorrow, I'm sure he'll have things to say as well. But definitely some sad news over the weekend. Landing Game 7 last night in the NBA Finals. Hard transition anytime you're talking about
There's no
passing.
good way to do it.
There's no good transition. Yeah. So I'll make it as abrupt as I can. Last night, Game 7 was a lot of fun. I'll be honest. It was, even with the Tyrese Halliburton injury, which I do want to talk about, probably spend the last portion of this opening segment talking about that injury, and then get to a lot of the actual game in the next segment. But that was a fun game. Even after Tyrese Halliburton left, I thought the Pacers showed a lot of fight in that, the rest of the second quarter and even the rest of the game to really keep that in striking distance for most of the game. A huge third quarter by Oklahoma City, but it was the injury to Tyrese Halliburton that changed everything. That changed the entire game. Came out, looked really good early. Was knocking down shots, was facilitating, was doing what he does extremely well. And then the injury, you could tell immediately when he went down that it was a serious injury. They showed the replay maybe a million times last night on the broadcast. It felt like every single time they were going to break, they showed that injury, and I was like, okay, we've seen it enough. We don't need to see it every single time you go to a break. But it was awful to see, and I think everyone knew immediately that it was an Achilles injury. His father ended up confirming that it was an Achilles injury at halftime, and now we have learned from Shams Charania, officially after seeing doctors, getting it looked at, that it is officially a torn Achilles, and that is just awful news for the Pacers. It was awful news last night because of what it meant, and if he plays, what happens last night, it's certainly a much closer game, and maybe we're talking about a Pacers win. Maybe we're talking about them stealing Game 7 in OKC. But now we know with an Achilles injury, that means he will likely be out all of next season, and that is just a killer for Indiana. Because I think a lot of people, and I have odds that we'll get to maybe here, maybe in the next segment, I have odds that I saw on FanDuel for next year's NBA champion. I would say if Tyrese Halliburton did not tear his Achilles last night, and if he played, let's say OKC lost. Let's say it's the same score that it was last night, and Pacers lost, and we're going into next season. I think the Pacers would be in the top 5 in terms of NBA champion odds for next year, because we've seen them last year get to the conference finals. This year we see them push through and get all the way to the NBA finals, and so you would think that with that group pretty much staying together, that group would be able to get back to at least the conference finals, maybe even the NBA finals, and maybe even be able to win it. So without that, their odds are much lower than what they would be if Tyrese Halliburton hadn't gone down. But the injury, it was brutal, and now I don't know what that means for the Pacers going in next year, because I think you saw this team is not the same without Tyrese Halliburton on the floor. They fought. Guys stepped up yesterday with him out. You look at what Benedict Mathurin was able to do, 24 points off the bench, 13 rebounds off the bench. You look at what T.J. McConnell was able to do with 16 points and 6 rebounds off the bench. But it was very clear that this team is nowhere near the same when Tyrese Halliburton isn't on the court. So it was a brutal loss. We're going to talk a lot about it in our next segment, kind of diving more, deeper into that game and what happened last night. But I do want to point out those odds for next year NBA Finals champion. Now, again, still very early, so no odds out there for Western Conference champ or to make the Western Conference Finals, nothing like that. Just NBA champions. As you can imagine, Landon, the Oklahoma City Thunder are plus 220 to win it all next year.
It's very shocking.
Not shocking at all.
I was being sarcastic.
I know you were. But I'll tell you what is shocking. It is shocking to me that the team with the shortest odds is plus 220. I mean, that is crazy. I want to go to other sports here and see what are odds in other sports for the best chance to win the Super Bowl. So in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills have the best odds to win the Super Bowl. Would you like to guess what the odds are for them to win the Super Bowl? We know OKC is plus 220 to win the NBA Finals in the NBA. What do you think the Super Bowl odds are for Baltimore and Buffalo?
Is it anywhere near that number?
Nowhere near it.
I'm going to guess plus 50.
Not even that. Plus 700.
Oh, wow. Wrong direction.
I was thinking you were meaning plus 500, which is, I guess, closer to plus 700. But
yeah, that's what I meant.
That's what you meant.
Plus 500.
But let's see. Let's go NHL. How about that? NHL Stanley Cup Finals champion Carolina Hurricanes plus 700. So I guess I would say NHL is closer to NBA because you have a 7-game series. Obviously, Super Bowl is a little different because you don't have a series. It's just one game. Yeah. So I can understand them being longer odds. Carolina Hurricanes plus 700 to win the Stanley Cup Finals next year. But OKC, because everyone's saying now we're about to watch a dynasty take place, plus 220. I was shocked when I saw that number.
Yeah, that's kind of been the big talk. I was hearing today earlier on ESPN, they were asking, is OKC one of the great all-time teams? Like, are they put up in that category? And Stephen A. Smith basically spoke against it, not taking away from how great of a team OKC is. I mean, you don't just by chance go 68-14 and make it to the NBA Finals and win it being a subpar team. I mean, they're a fantastic team. But when he started breaking down, when you think of the great all-time teams, you think Jordan and Pippen, you think Shaq and Kobe, you think Steph and Clay and KD. Like, you think those big names. And he brought out a lot of good points that I totally agreed with throughout this entire series, not even just the NBA Finals, but throughout the NBA playoffs. OKC a lot of times on offense started to look stagnant in a few games. The stuff wasn't really rolling. The pride of their team, which I would say is their defense, was the thing that was really carrying them through, turning defense into offense and scoring off those turnovers. But there's a lot of times in the NBA Finals, and I think that's why Indiana were contenders as long as they were, is because you look at the nights that some of their stars had, and they just had way too many off nights in the NBA Finals. So I think with all that, great team. Definitely one of the best runs that we've seen in recent memory. But as far as one of the great all-time teams, would you put them in that category?
Well, so here's what I'll say. I think one day we could be talking about them in that category.
Yeah,
but
I think you give it a few years because OKC's definitely not
Sure.
done making appearances in the NBA Finals.
But you mentioned some of those names, and you're talking about guys that won it multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think it's a little – look, I said this earlier. I'll say it again. I was telling some of my buddies about it. We talk to Keith Smith all the time about teams and dynasties and whatever, because I think, especially in the NBA, we're so used to dynasties, or at least in recent years, we're used to them.
Right.
You know, you go all the way back. You know, you could say there was a Boston Celtics dynasty. There was a LA Lakers dynasty when Kobe was there. There was just a LeBron dynasty based on, you know, him in Miami, him in Cleveland. They were always in the NBA Finals. Golden State dynasty. Like, we have seen these dynastic type of runs where teams don't just win one, they go and win a couple. And so I think we've almost kind of decided that, okay, well, when a young team wins it once, there's more to come. And I do think there's probably more to come.
But there's an expectation with it.
Sure. You know, I saw someone point out on social media that a lot of people thought Boston was gonna, you know, it wasn't just gonna be one for Boston.
Yeah, that Boston was gonna go on a run.
You know, it might not just be one for Boston, but right now, you know, they get eliminated this year. Now Jason Tatum is down, is gonna miss probably all of next season. So, you know, we just have to wait and see. And Keith Smith always tells us those windows, those championship windows, they're not as wide open as we think they are, you know, when a team just wins one. But then he said about this OKC team, it looks like they're in a pretty good spot, and it could be more for them. So I don't want to say the day after they win their first ever.
Right,
that,
it is still pretty fresh.
This is one of the greatest teams
like, look
we've
out,
ever
this
seen.
is going to be
exactly.
a historic run going on.
I think they've got a good opportunity to do that. Obviously, the betting market thinks they have a good opportunity to do that, plus 220 to win it next year. But I think, that's definitely a hot takery, first take type of arguments.
But there's also, I mean, this was the 7th new NBA champ that we've had, and that's the longest streak. That's never happened before in NBA history. So odds are also pretty high that we could have another one next year.
That's exactly right. So we'll talk a lot about the NBA Finals. I wanted to save kind of what happened in the game yesterday for our next segment, because we're going to spend the entire segment on Game 7 and what we saw last night. I'll get into some of these other odds for the champions next year, Grizzlies. Pretty low. I shouldn't say I was shocked, but they are pretty low in these. We'll get to a lot of these teams and where they're at to win the NBA Finals next year. A lot to get into this afternoon, so let me set it up before we get to top and not top story of the day. 3:30, we're going to talk about Game 7 of the NBA Finals, everything we saw last night in the Thunder's 103-91 win over the Indiana Pacers. 3:45, we're going to talk some baseball. We'll talk a little College World Series in there. LSU wrapped it up, made it look relatively easy against Coastal Carolina, 2-0 in the best-of-3 series, but Coastal Carolina, their head coach, doesn't even get to see most of the game yesterday. He gets ejected in the bottom of the first inning. We'll talk a little College World Series. We'll talk a little Major League Baseball as well. We'll do that at 3:45. 4 o'clock, David Cobb from CBS Sports. He'll join us to talk college football and college basketball. A lot to get to as we're getting closer to media days, as those will get kicked off next month. We're getting closer to the season as well for college football, but also got to talk some college basketball with him as well. We'll do that at 4 o'clock. 4:30, talk a little bit of the NBA draft, and especially what the Grizzlies are going to do at the NBA draft, as the draft's Wednesday. I hope OKC is ready to just quickly turn around and make a draft pick in a couple days, because they have a draft pick in the lottery this year, and they just got done winning the NBA Finals last night. So it's a quick turnaround for everybody, but it's certainly a quick turnaround for both the Pacers and the Thunder. Except, a lot of people have been pointing out the Pacers, a couple days before that injury to Tyrese Halliburton, they traded their first-round pick this year,
Their 23rd pick,
for their first-round pick next year that New Orleans had. They had traded it to New Orleans, and now they got it back. And so a lot of people are saying, well, they great move by them, because they might not be very good next year without Tyrese Halliburton. I think, and we'll get to that later as well, I think a lot of that's overdone to an extent about this team's going to be terrible next year because they just traded away somebody. We'll get to that later. 4:45, we'll get to big number of the day. 5 o'clock, to Michael Cole, the Grizzlies beat writer over at the Commercial Appeal. He will join us, talk a lot of Grizzlies. 5:30, we'll get to what's trending. And at 5:45, we'll wrap up today's show like we always do with Moe's Crunch Time. Let me remind you, we're in our Family Leisure Studios where family and fun come together. It's pool time, and Family Leisure is already booking pool installs for 2025. Buy now and get on the list for your pool installation. 2024 pool starting at $19.99 installed, with liners starting at $299. And right now, all pool accessories are up to 20% off. 5 to 6 person hot tubs starting at $69.99, with swim spas and cold plunge tubs now $2,000 off. Don't forget about patio furniture. Select sets now up to 50% off. And if you mention this ad, get free installation only at Family Leisure, 2120 Witten Road, just north of I-40. Call, text into our Sissy's Log Cabin listener line. We want to hear all of your thoughts, whether it's on the NBA Finals, whether it's on the draft, whether it's on baseball, football, whatever's on your mind. Let us know. 901-360-8255. Again, 901-360-8255. Be a part of the conversation over at our Sissy's Log Cabin listener line. And as always, this first hour brought to you each and every day by Lexus of Memphis. Make sure you head out there. Summertime, perfect time. Maybe you got more free time now that it's summer to go out there, check out what Lexus of Memphis has on the lot, and they can get you into that perfect vehicle just for you. So we appreciate Lexus of Memphis being a part of our show each and every day. Well, I just looked at time. We talked way longer than I thought we would in our brief, what was supposed to be our shortened NBA Finals talk, that we got to be quick, but let's go ahead and get to top story of the day.
Top story of the day.
Well, I'll save most of this for the next segment, but obviously my top story of the day is the Thunder getting their first championship under their belt, especially for this group of guys. We know they are still relatively young. I mean, Alex Caruso is the wily vet on this roster, but they've got a lot of youth. You look at some of those young stars, SGA, it feels like just getting into his prime. Jalen Williams, still very young. Chet Holmgren, still very young. And they've got a lot of younger dudes on that bench. Cason Wallace, who just was drafted a couple years ago. Dylan Jones, who was just drafted a couple years ago. Nikola Topic, who has not even played a game yet, was a first-round, a lottery pick last year that has been coming back from an ACL injury. This is a very young team, and it looks like there's more in store for them when it comes to postseason success. But I don't even want to talk about next year. I don't want to talk about how many. I don't want to talk about down the road. This was an incredible performance all year long for this Oklahoma City Thunder team. They showed offensively they were one of the best teams in the league. Defensively, they showed they were one of the best defensive teams we've seen in recent history. They were locked in on both sides. It did take 7 games, and that's credit to the Indiana Pacers. I know that they lost. I know a lot of people are going to talk Tyrese Halliburton today and that injury and what it meant. If he was still in there, what would have happened? You got to give this Pacers team a ton of credit for how they fought throughout this series. Again, let's go back. Everyone's saying this is going to be a 4 or 5 game series. OKC is going to make it look easy. This series goes all the way to 7 games, and you got to get a lot of credit to guys outside of Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton was injured this entire series. We know the big injury in Game 5, and certainly the massive injury last night in Game 7. But Pascal Siakam, what he did throughout this series. Aaron Nesmith, what he did throughout this playoffs. Miles Turner stepped up in games. Obi Toppin has looked good in a lot of games. Obviously, TJ McConnell has been a massive story for what he's done. Bennedict Mathurin has looked good. It was a lot of guys stepping up for the Pacers to keep them competitive and keep them in this series. So you got to give a lot of credit to them. But obviously, a lot of talk's going to be on the Thunder winning it last night. Congratulations to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point of the team being so young, last night I heard in the post-game interview that Alex Caruso had to teach Jalen Williams and basically the whole team how to open champagne. And that was the first time that they've actually even tried champagne in their lives.
I heard somebody say that one of the guys on the team had never drank before.
Yeah, Jalen, I think it was J-Dub. Jalen Williams. Yeah.
Okay,
that was his first time. Well, you even see the video. Caruso's already got his bottle open. He's already chugging, and everybody else.
Caruso's a vet. He knows what he's doing.
Everybody else is struggling with the top
how do I
and
do
trying
this?
to get it up. Somebody's like try to put it on the table and like hit it off like they're opening like a root beer bottle or something like that. But definitely well deserved for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But to your point, I mean, nothing can take away from the historic run that the Indiana Pacers had. I mean, you think about the improbable comebacks that they had in every single game of every single series that they had leading up to the finals. Even stealing Game 1 from OKC in OKC cannot be overstated. But I think my top story has to be the way that TJ McConnell performed in the finals, the way that he stepped up, the way that he became a problem, so much so that the OKC Thunder had to game plan for TJ McConnell because the dude was just running around. I believe when I was doing a John show with Darian and Recess Radio, shout out to Recess Radio, that that Elisha called him a momentum shifter, a momentum changer, and that's exactly what he was. The dude came out there and completely redid it. The only reason the Pacers stayed in that game in the third quarter was because of TJ McConnell making shot after shot after shot, so he did an incredible job. Shout out to the Pacers, but a well-deserved and well-earned win from OKC.
Not top story of the day.
Well, my not top story of the day, it is the Kevin Durant trade that came down yesterday afternoon. We knew that it was going to be soon, and it ultimately happened yesterday. This is the tweet from Shams Charania. Phoenix Suns are trading two-time NBA Finals MVP Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in the 2025 draft, and 5 second-round picks. Look, this is a trade that if I was going to grade it, if I was going to say one team won this trade, I would obviously say it was the Rockets for getting Kevin Durant and really not having to give up a ton for it. But I'm seeing a lot of people saying this is the worst trade ever, this is a terrible trade. They're trying to compare it to what we saw here with Desmond Bane and what Desmond Bane was able to get in return in that trade. And I don't think those are similar. I think these are two completely different trades. I think there's a lot that went into both of these trades, but I do think the Rockets got better. We'll talk about this trade more later in the show, but definitely big news that Kevin Durant is going to the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, real quickly, let's venture into the UFC. One of the greatest of all time legends, John Jones has announced his retirement from the UFC after one of the most historic runs in UFC history, going 28-1 with 1 no decision. His only loss came by disqualification early in his career, but other than that, just total domination from one of the greatest to ever do it, to one of the greatest to ever put on his gloves. And if you know anything about me, Philippians 4:13 on his chest, the way that he represents that each and every time he goes out into the octagon, truly special. So he will be missed in the octagon. One of the greatest to ever do it. We were talking about it on John's show. Johnny and I both believe he's the greatest heavyweight in UFC history, and there's a lot of statistics to prove that. So thanks to John Jones for all you gave to the UFC. You will be missed, but what a legacy he's leaving behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that'll do it for top and not top story of the day. We got to get to our first break. When we return, we're talking more about what we saw last night in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. That's next on Sportstime.
Join the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin, for Wolo and Friends. Weekday mornings from 10 to 11 here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Hi, I'm Troy Fiveash with Fiveash Roofing. Ever wonder what happens when a contractor saves money on materials? Well, they usually put that money in their pocket. Fiveash Roofing has negotiated new lower prices for the materials we use. Instead of putting that savings in my pocket, I've decided to pass it on to you. You can call it a sale Reduced pricing, a limited time offer, or even a blue light special. We call it fair, honest, ethical, and the right thing to do. If you've been wondering if now is the right time to get a new roof, only you can answer that, but now is a good time to see how much you can save. Don't forget we have best price guarantees, the best warranty in the business, and superb ratings with the BBB and Google+. We don't use high-pressure sales tactics, and we never will. We're family-owned and operated with roots in the Memphis area. For a fair and honest roof assessment and estimate, call 5 Roofing at 488-4991 or check us out at memphisroofer.com.
5 Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you. When you switch to Progressive, you could save money on your home and auto. Then you could put that money towards some of the surprisingly more expensive things in life.
Attention passengers, we've reached 10,000 feet and internet is now available for purchase. I just paid hundreds for this flight and you can't even throw in the internet? I'll just take the fruit pretzels. Sorry, but I do have snack boxes for sale. I'm just gonna sleep. In that case, we are selling pillows and blankets as well. I'll just breathe. That's free, right?
Life costs a lot, so bundle and you could save with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates, other insurers, not available in all states. All 650 acquisition fee, 20,000 miles per year. K4 SE 137 210, MSRP 24 340, K5 S 536 6209, MSRP 29 170, Sportage SG 271 1755, MSRP 34 115, Telluride SG 66 2001, MSRP 41 060. Must finance through KFA, excludes tax and license with approved credit dealer stock only. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through 07220. Hey, Jeff Allen, I hear the Gossett Kia summer sticker sales event is on now at Gossett Kia South on Mount Moriah.
It sure is, Randy, and listen to this. I've got a 2025 Kia K4 LXS at $150 a month. That's $5 a day for a new ride. 2025 Kia K5 LXS, $265 a month. 2025 Kia Sportage X-Line, $275 a month. Plus, 2025 Kia Telluride S front-wheel drive, $359 per month. All $49.99 due at signing, 24-month lease.
Plus a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty and the all-new 2026 EV9 with 72 months and 3.49 available.
So if you live in Horn Lake, South Haven, Olive Branch, or Memphis, you'll be happy at Gossett Kia on Mount Moriah.
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right and naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about everything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys, beyond the bottle, Tito's has gained a reputation for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits around the world to serve its community and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's and learn more at Tito'sVodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, mainly 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
This Rebel Yow is back. Rebel Yow online radio show is back on WHBQ Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Every Monday night at 6, hear the latest news on your Ole Miss Rebels with Nancy Porter with 24/7 Sports. Your Ole Miss defensive tackle Mike Fitzsimmons, Gordon Moore covering SEC sports ball, and former Ole Miss baseball announcer Gary Garvey from kickoff to first throw to extra innings. Your Ole Miss Sports on the Rebel Yow Hotline Show right here Monday night at 6 on Sports 56, 560 AM and 98.5 FM. Your Mid-South Sports Station.
This traffic report brought to you by Triangle Meat Company, feeding Memphis since 1967. Open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, 4790 Summer Avenue. Trust Triangle Meat Company.
Good afternoon, T-Dots. Out here assisting with several disabled vehicles. It may be the heat causing some of these cars to overheat as traffic gets heavier through Midtown. Just in the last few minutes, I-40 at Chelsea. Still moving on the I-40 bridge right now over towards Crittenden County into West Memphis. Dandelions, crabgrass, Lawn Solutions here in Memphis says, hey, give us a call. We'll make your yard look good this summer. Call Lawn Solutions, 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Now, back to Sports Time on Sports 56. This hour is brought to you by Lexus Service. Here are your hosts, Red Star Sports Movie and Brian Davis.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Brian and Brett with you live and local inside our Family Leisure studios. We talked a little bit about the NBA Finals, but didn't really get into what we saw last night in that game. A 103-91 win for the Thunder over the Pacers. Obviously, the big injury early in the game to Tyrese Halliburton. Only played 7 minutes before going down with that injury. But in that first quarter, 9 points, 3 for 5 from the field. It was a hot start for Tyrese Halliburton before he went down down with injury. You got to give credit to the Pacers for how they fought without him, but ultimately not enough. Thunder get the 103-91 win. We got Brett with us now. Brett, what jumped out to you last night in that win by the Thunder?
Well, Brian, I'm very sorry for the delay of being on. I had a major accident in front of my house that clipped about every telephone pole that we have. And so, but I join you now. I hope it sounds fine. I saw what everybody saw last night. I saw the Pacers right there ahead by 1 at halftime, even without the early injury to Tyrese Halliburton, and then they just didn't have enough. McConnell played well, but racked up a couple turnovers, some critical turnovers, and it was just too much. Mm-hmm. I mean, with everything going against them, and probably may have been too much even if they'd had a healthy Tyrese Halliburton. And that last night is a good example, Bryant, of why when a player, and I don't remember the exact injury around NCAA tournament time, but Tyrese Hunter, that was more knee than calf, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
For the Tigers?
Yeah.
When a player says he can't go, that means he can't go. It's not he doesn't want to go, he can't go. And Tyrese Halliburton tried to give it a go, and now probably has inflicted more longer-term damage than he or the Pacers wanted him, to spend for sure, because that used to be a year. I don't know if it will be that, but it'll be a long, painful rehab, and that's going to be his entire offseason. Last year, the entire offseason was being at the Olympics. This year, it's going to be with the orthopedist and getting an Achilles put back together again. But he was trying to give it a go, and it just wasn't enough. Oklahoma City was the best team all year, and really a year ago, who had that? This was the year of the Celtics are going to repeat, or Denver's going to be back, or Phoenix even with that galaxy of stars that they were going to be there. So, maybe we don't know as much on opening night as we think we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and you mentioned that injury to Tyrese Halliburton. I got to give credit to Elisha, the mornings producer, filling in for Dave last week, talking about, or maybe earlier, whenever it was that he had that injury after Game 5. I was saying, he's going to give it a go. He's going to try to go. He's going to go out there and really lay it out on the line. And he said, I don't know if he should do that. This takes me back to what happened with Kevin Durant when he was with the Warriors and he went down, and kind of a very similar thing. And, you saw a lot of people talking about that last night after the injury to Tyrese Halliburton of how that really brought back memories of Kevin Durant when he was in the NBA Finals and went down with that Achilles injury. But you're right. I think it was just too much to ask for those guys. It was obviously a very emotional injury for that entire team, and TJ McConnell just really impressive with that 16 points, 8 for 13 from the field. But, it was a little too much to ask for him to be that primary ball handler for the rest of the game. You saw those 7 turnovers, 7 of 21 total turnovers for the Indiana Pacers, and that was a big reason of why they lost that game, is because of all those turnovers.
And just Oklahoma City, how they get into you in that half court. I mean, they're right in your chest, right in your grill. They have that intensity. They had it all year. It very, very rarely waned. But Indiana, we talked about it Friday, that Indiana, they did themselves proudly. Nobody, very few people gave them a real chance of winning. At ESPN, we talked about their experts, their panel of experts won, out of 13 or 14, 15 or so, had them winning. And Bruce Marshall, he hung with the Pacers all the way through, but they couldn't get it done. But they won 3 games, and they made themselves proud. Even in the East this year, what the Pacers came through, because all year, Cleveland was about the brute in the East that Oklahoma City was in the West. And they were able to beat them. They were able to beat the Knicks and get to the finals and lose in 7 games. They don't want to runner-up banner. I don't blame them. I don't know if they have Eastern Conference rings or not. None of them want them. They want an NBA championship ring. But there'll only be one team that gets that, and it's Oklahoma City. And now the real question for them, is this the start of how many?
Yeah, no, and that's definitely the question. We've kind of talked about that a little bit with a lot of people already wanting to run. I mentioned earlier that right now, the odds to win next year is OKC the favorite at plus 220, which is just insane to even think about. Looking into next year and not even really starting the offseason, but already only plus 220 to win it next year. But you're right. I mean, the Pacers, it's one of those where nobody is gonna be super excited that they lost in the NBA Finals, but what they were able to do this year, beating Milwaukee, beating Cleveland, and then beating the Knicks to get to the NBA Finals, to go 7 games, was just really impressive. You got to give them a lot of credit, and the guys that stepped up for them. I mean, how many people, before the playoffs started, were talking about how big of a factor Aaron Nesmith was going to be in the playoffs. How big of a factor that Miles Turner and Andrew Nembhard were going to be. How big of a factor Bennett Mathurin was going to be off the bench. T.J. McConnell as well. It was a lot of guys that stepped up for them. We talked about these two teams being the deepest teams in the NBA, and you saw a lot of that depth for both sides step up throughout these NBA Finals and play really pivotal roles for both these teams.
And we knew when these finals were set, we were going to get a new champion, a 12th different champion of this 21st century, and we get it. So Oklahoma City, we all think, are going on a pretty good run, more than we thought Denver was going to go on, and more than even Milwaukee winning their first one since Lou Alcindor, more than they were going to go on. And you go back to Toronto in 2019, Oklahoma City feels like they have that staying power to over the next 7-8 years, win it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, no, I mean they are set up really well, and we talked about a lot about what Keith Smith said a couple weeks ago when we asked him about this Oklahoma Thunder team, and he always talks about how those windows aren't as open as we think they are for a lot of these teams. But then there was a big but in there. But this Oklahoma City team seems like they're really set up well when you look at these 3 young stars that they have, and you look at some of those rotation pieces and just all of this draft capital that they have, where they can use that to go and make trades. They can use those picks to just make picks and kind of stockpile guys. It feels like that it could be, in terms of rotation players, kind of a little bit of a rotating door, but it feels like you're going to have talented players in those roles. So yeah, it seems like we could be talking about a dynasty. But they have to go back out there next year and repeat that. They've got to go and make another deep run in the NBA Finals.
Be the hunted.
Yeah, and it's going to be a much different feeling for them. You're right. They're going to be the hunted. So it's going to be fun to kind of see what they do this offseason and then kind of follow along. Can they repeat next year and win another NBA Final? And then we're really talking about a dynastic run for the Thunder.
How many more and in how many years? And they eventually will. No matter what, they eventually will, because you just win that much, you do become the hated. So how many more in a span of how many years for them to turn into the evil empire?
Oh, geez. Honestly, I think with this group, I think if you win one more in the next 2 years, I think you become
Next year.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason, this team is a team that I feel like a lot of people find easy to hate, and I don't know what it is about them. But
do you? Because I don't share that. But there was a time that I didn't feel that way about the Golden State with Clay and Steph and Draymond and other pieces, Andre Iguodala. There was a lot of those players that I didn't feel like that about it, but eventually we got there.
Sure. And I want to be very clear. I don't share that opinion about either Golden State or OKC. But
I do Golden State.
Well, I know you do about Golden State, but just seeing what people say about this Thunder team and how people view this Thunder team, I think they are a team that, at least for a lot of teams in the West, are easy to hate. And then I think just NBA in general, if they win another one next year, the year after, and they kind of start on this roll, I think they could very quickly turn into the evil empire.
Who's going to be the face of the sports hate? Sports hate, mostly in fun, mostly. It should all be in fun. But who would be the person that would get most of that derision? Who turns into their Draymond?
Well, I think not in terms of the same way as Draymond, but I think SGA, and I think it's all going to be driven around the foul baiting. I mean, I think the more they win, the bigger that catches on, and everyone really goes after him for foul baiting or whatever you want to call it. The free throw merchant.
We used to call it gamesmanship.
Oh yeah, well it's definitely not that anymore. It's free throw merchant and whatever you want to call it. But I think he could turn into a guy that people.
When Kobe got to the line, we weren't poking at him.
No, certainly not. I don't know. I don't really know what it is about SGA, but it's been very quick that people have kind of turned on him and have labeled him this boring player that is a free throw merchant. That's what I see a lot of people saying about him. I think he's a great player. I think he's a fun player to watch, but it just seems like SGA could quickly turn into a guy that people are not a fan of.
But it's not Chet Holmgren.
No, certainly not. That's why, I mean, I look at this roster and I think the only one it could be is SGA.
Yeah, certainly not Jalen Williams either.
No, I don't think it's Jalen Williams either. I think SGA.
Either Jalen Williams.
That's right. Yeah. No, I don't know. I mean, obviously I don't know how many people thought it was Draymond until it became Draymond. I think like that stuff becomes what it is. So who knows who it could be? It could be Chet. You never know. Chet might turn into this guy that is elbowing people and doing all this dirty stuff and becomes that most hated guy. I don't know, but it feels like this core, those three are going to be locked in for a while with OKC, and it feels like they could have a ton of success as a group. And I think it's going to be fun to see if they can do it again next year. And that question of how many more and how much time are they able to win, it will be fun to keep an eye on.
What kind of celebration ensued in Oklahoma City? I have not seen a single story. Has there been an overturned car won? Has it been a busted out light anywhere?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I have not seen
I haven't seen anything
much.
either.
I saw a couple of videos of just people celebrating. Oh, yeah, no, you definitely see it. I just haven't seen much of it.
I don't think there's been any.
I don't think so.
That's that small market team for you.
Yeah, I guess so.
They took it to the rack about 11:30.
That's right. Yeah, they were. By the time the game was over, they only had about 30 minutes to celebrate, and then it was
lights out on Sunday night in OKC.
Yeah, we got work tomorrow. But I haven't seen really anything. I've seen a couple of from like their local news of people celebrating, but it certainly hasn't been anything crazy. So that is something I'll have to look into that during this break and see if there's any mayhem from OKC. But definitely was fun watching OKC win it all last night over the Indiana Pacers. But we need to get to another break, and when we return, we got to talk some baseball, a little College World Series, a little Major League Baseball. We'll do all of that next on Sports Time.
Broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studio, we are Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Looking for sports in all the wrong places? Try the Owner's Box Sports Bar and Grill in Lakeland's Town Square. Fun, exciting, friendly, and comfortable. Wall-to-wall TVs, 24 taps for all your beers, including $3 domestic, $5 craft pints on Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 happy hour. Music bingo Tuesdays, daily special, and Owner's Box Sports Bar and Grill. Lakeland's Town Square, Highway 70. Check those out for daily special and weekend music at the Owner's Box.
Unleash the power. Make every mile count in your new Volkswagen from Gossett Volkswagen on the bike. Available right now, 2025 Jetta SN 2025 Taos, 4.9 for 60 months. 2025 Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport, 3.9% for 60 months. And 1,500 loyalty rebate on all 2025 GTIs, Jettas, Taos, Tiguan's Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport. Plus 5,000 off 2024 Atlas Cross Sport SELR line. But only 2 left, so you better hurry to Gossett Volkswagen. 1875 Covington Pike or online anytime at GossettVWMemphis.com. That's Gossett, charging forward and charging less every day. If you want it, we got it at Gossett Volkswagen.
AC dealer for complete details. 2024 Atlas RC 226135, MSRP 51733, RC 227219, MSRP 52133. Must finance through Volkswagen Credit. Includes all rebates and incentives. PF 895 excludes tax title and license. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through end of the month. With approved credit dealer stock only.
Pools, and more pools. Yes, it is pool time at Family Leisure. Family Leisure is already booking pool installs, so you need to buy now and get on that list. 24-foot pools start at $19.99 install. Liners are starting at $2.99. You're going to need some pool accessories, so they're all up to 20% off. Not quite ready for a pool? That's fine. Get a 5 or 6 person hot tub starting at under $7,000. You can also go for a swim spa or perhaps a cold plunge tub. Those are now $2,000 off. Get patio furniture up to 50% off on select sets. Buy your pool now. Get on that install list. Mention this commercial, and your install is free. It's underlined in the in-bold print, so you know it's big. It's pool time at Family Leisure. Family Leisure, Whitten Road at I-40, where
and it's the perfect time to grill, chill, and save with Choates. Install a new generator, tankless water heater, or Carrier HVAC system, and you'll get your choice of a free Green Egg Grill or 36 months no-interest financing. Stay powered during storms, enjoy endless hot water, and slash your cooling costs this summer with a high-efficiency Carrier system, and grill some slow-smoke barbecue on us. But hurry, this special ends soon. And if you're dealing with plumbing or electrical problems, Choates is here for you too. Give us a try and take $60 off your repair. Leaky faucet, clogged drain, broken outlet, lights flickering? Call Choates and save $60 on your plumbing or electrical repair service. Call 347-8086 or visit ChoatesHVAC.com today. And remember, Choates, let our family serve your family.
Now, back to Sports Time on Sports 56. This hour is brought to you by Lexus and Davis. Here are your hosts, Brent Stack, Sports Movie, and Brian Davis.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant and Brett with you live and local inside our Family Leisure studios. I know we said we were going to talk baseball during this segment. We'll talk some baseball a little bit later in the show. But now that we have Brett with us, we spent a good amount of time in the first segment talking about the really sad passing Fred Smith. We spent a good amount of time in the first segment, but I mentioned that once we had Brett, I know Brett would want to talk about it a little bit. So, Brett, now that we have you, just really sad news Saturday night with the passing of Fred Smith.
It was an enormous and consequential life. Just imagine living a life that mattered so much to so many. As we speak today, worldwide, there are 500,000 employees of FedEx. Think of all the people that idea that he had, that hard work that he put forth, the dream he had and what he accomplished, and how many people that it influenced, how many people that it made their lives, made their retirement, made their existence. And you can run into any FedEx employee, and in a blink of an eye, they can tell you their employee ID number, and they can tell you, and every one of them will tell you that they're from mid-level bosses to the very top executives, the level of respect that they're treated with. And I think that redounded from him. He set that tone there, and I've said many times I thought it was the best company in the world. I mean, you can have a photo album you want to send a relative in Singapore, and it can be there tomorrow, or a panda from a remote Chinese village, flown into Memphis, and just so many other things he did. But and there's so many sectors of his life you can touch on. Obviously, business. Obviously, for us, sports. Brian, I can remember me and George Lapidus, we went to Chicago in the fall of 1993, and we knew Charlotte was getting the team. And it was really down to Memphis or Jacksonville for the other team, and we know what happened. And as far as heartbreakingly close as we were, we wouldn't have been that close without the leadership of Fred Smith. He got us right there to that point with the mighty NFL. And I knew what a captain of industry he was, and just what a solid go-getter, homespun story that he was. But I was really glad to meet his NFL ownership partner, the great Willie Davis from those Packers, from those Vince Lombardi Packer teams. And we were there in Chicago at a hotel near O'Hare for those days. And he thought we were getting across the finish line, but we didn't. But he still came through when we finally got to the major leagues with FedEx Forum. But one area that I do want to talk about is Fred Smith, the Patriot. Fred Smith, the guy that graduates from Yale and volunteers for the United States Marine Corps. They send him off to officer candidate school, and he's in Vietnam, leading a troop pretty shortly thereafter. I don't mean this as a slight to anyone, but tell me the last person that graduated from Yale and joined the Marines.
Yeah, I don't have anybody.
Can't be many.
Nothing. No.
Can't be many that made that sacrifice, and he did it. And also the work he did. And I remember in a brief conversation with him about it and how much he revered and loved and thought of him as a hero, the late Senator from Kansas, Robert Dole, the 1996 Republican nominee for president. He was Jerry Ford's running mate in 1976, Senate Majority Leader. and we were talking about the World War II memorial on the Washington Mall. And I said to him, thank you for that. He goes, don't thank me. He said, Bob Dole raised that money. He said, he raised every dime of it. He said, my name, I was just in the team picture. That wasn't entirely accurate. He was very involved in it, but he wanted to give credit to Bob Dole, and he said he was the patriot. Think about him at 20 years old in the mountains of Italy in World War II, shot up and busted up, came home, had a 3-year convalescence. So there's a guy that was in Vietnam, but his hero was a guy that served in World War II.
Yeah, that's incredible. That really is. I mean, honestly, we could have spent all 3 hours of this show talking about what Fred Smith meant
Really
to Memphis, to the city, to the sports scene in the city. I mean, just an unbelievable
and the humility
thing.
The humility he did it with. I mean, he did not want to be. He did not want to be in the front of the picture.
No,
he did not.
No, certainly not. And just everything I've heard about him has been just good things. Very generous man. I remember my girlfriend Melinda talking about her only interaction ever with Fred Smith. She was working at a restaurant and was opening the door, and she opened the door for him, and he said, thanks so much. He goes, how old are you? And Melinda said, well, I'm in high school. He goes, okay, well, if you're ever looking for a job, come to FedEx and work. Handed her a $100 bill and went to his car. I mean, that's just incredible.
Wow.
That
Wow.
is incredible. So
Wow.
just a super generous guy, and just really, really sad news over the weekend, Saturday night, hearing about his passing. I mentioned it earlier. I'll mention it again. Obviously, being a sports show and what Fred Smith meant to the sports scene here, Jason Munns has a great story up at the Commercial Appeal just talking about what Fred Smith meant to the sports scene here locally and kind of what all he had his hands in when it came to sports here. So definitely really, really sad news over the weekend about the passing of Fred Smith. Well, we need to wrap up this hour and get to another break. When we return, David Cobb from CBS Sports, he's going to join us. We're going to talk college football, college basketball. We'll do all of that next with David Cobb.
Ready to crush the competition with your new ride from Gossett Hyundai on the Pike. 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5 SEL front-wheel drive EV, 318 miles on a single charge. We Gossett at just $241 a month. How about 2025 Hyundai Elantra SEL Sport, 39 MPG Highway? We Gossett $297 a month. And 2024 Hyundai Santa Fe XRT all-wheel drive MSRP, $42,180. We Gossett now $37,180 or $469 a month. That's $5,000 off MSRP. And you always get America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. So get to Gossett Hyundai today, 1870 Covington Pike, or visit us online, HyundaiGossett.com.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
MSRP 52015, SYO 16445, Elantra SU 997 852, MSRP 25565, Santa Fe RH 126339, MSRP 42180, includes all rebates and incentives, PF 895, excludes tax file and license with approved credit. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through end of the month. Dealer stock only.
One of life's greatest mysteries has finally been solved.
Who let the dogs out? Spruce! Spruce! Spruce!
It's Spruce, the new hard-working, worry-free weed and grass killer that's safe for use around people and pets. When used as directed, spray the leaves for visible results in just 1 hour, and dead weeds in just 1 day. You spray, they play. Weeds die by the next day.
Who let the dogs out?
Find Spruce wherever weed killers are sold.
Do you know one of the best things you can do for your employees or family's health? Provide Arctic Clear bottled water. Arctic Clear bottled water is your locally owned and operated bottled water provider. Arctic Clear is 100% natural spring water with free delivery instead of dependable service and no long-term contracts. An easy choice. Call Jeff Metis today, 901-382-2363, or visit arctic-clear.com. Arctic Clear bottled water. Call now 382-2363. That's 382-2363.
Take your basketball skills to the next level at Shoot 360 Memphis. Shoot 360 is a revolutionary basketball training facility that combines cutting-edge technology with gamification and provides instant objective feedback, hands-on, one-on-one expert coaching. And now, introducing Shoot 360 for you, a newly renovated 50,000-square-foot facility with 2 NBA regulation-sized courts, 3 high school-sized courts, and 4 shooting bays with Shoot 360 technology. Memberships are now on a monthly basis. And yes, you can become a member at both locations. Whether you're an aspiring young talent, NBA player, 6 years, we've decided to expand our product line. Anyone who's tasted our ribs is familiar with our vinegar base. It's now available in the 32-ounce jar. It's so good to base or marinate all meats. I even put a little bit on turnip greens. Something we've been using at the restaurant or in our house has been the Greek seasoning. My father was a cook, but my mother was a chef, and she was the one that put Greek seasoning on everything from the Mediterranean diet to steak. My mom used it on soup, salad, veggies, fish, any meat. It's a great seasoning and a flavor enhancer. My brother Nick figured out salt and pepper is more than just McCormick's and Morton's. He's come up with the perfect blend we use to coat our shoulders and our brisket, and he used to make it for his friends as Christmas gifts, and they loved it. All these products are available on Rendezvous or online for shipping as gifts and in many grocery stores. And if they're not in your favorite grocery store, ask your grocer to stock it. A beloved family affair is still going strong since 1948. Rendezvous.
This traffic report is brought to you by Millington Weight Loss. For more information, call 901-436-0272.
Good afternoon. We're dodging a few rain showers out here. Just depends on what side of town you're on. As traffic starts to get a little bit heavier, especially trying to get up north on 51, traveling up through Millington, up through Woodstock. It's increased with that volume through Midtown. Right on schedule southbound on 240 here at South Parkway. Dandelions, crabgrass, lawn solutions here at Memphis says give them a call. That telephone number is 867-5626. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
From the Family Leisure Studios, we are Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis. Joining Brian and Brett now on Sportstime is National College Football writer for CBS Sports, Memphis native and Tennessee grad, who you can find on Twitter X at David W. Cobb. It's David Cobb.
David Cobb joins us now from CBS Sports, talk college football and college basketball. A lot to get to, but David, to start things off, I want to talk Tigers and Tiger basketball. Penny Hardaway last week during his Tigers on Tour stop at a local establishment said that he expects Memphis to add one more player this offseason to the basketball roster. Before that, it was expected that he would use all 15 of the roster spots post the house settlement. Now it looks like he will just use one more, which would get them to either 13 or 14 players. What do you make of this current roster that Penny Hardaway has? And with the addition of one more, you got to assume it will be a big, but how do you view this roster if it is just one more being added?
Yeah, it's got to be a big. No question about it. Because you still don't know on Dane Danger, and even if Dane Danger's waiver gets approved, you're talking about Aaron Bradshaw, Dane Danger, and that's it in terms of traditional bigs. I realize they got William Horton from South Dakota, but he's more of a Dink Yates type, like a break glass in case of emergency. Hopefully not somebody you have to rely on. Maybe he can develop into something if he stays around, but it's got to be a big for Penny. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I love the roster. And I realize part of it's out of his control. You lose P.J. Haggerty to the highest bidder, right? I mean, maybe nothing you can do about that. But it just doesn't look like a type of roster that I see advancing in the NCAA tournament. Is it talented enough to win the AAC? Absolutely. And you get to the big dance, anything can happen. We all know that. But they just set a high bar last year by winning the league tournament, beating a bunch of good teams in November and December, and really kind of taking care of business for the most part in January and February too. And now with zero continuity, I see that replicating what they did last season being really, really tough for this group. Of course, Penny's made a habit out of kind of having good seasons when we don't expect it. I mean, I think last year was a good example of that. He's going to have to do that again, though, because you look at this roster and you just, at least I don't see a team that's going to break through and certainly build on last year's success.
David, not just Coach Hardaway, but around college sports, football and basketball, how many people you think are talking, we're going to fully fund every scholarship, but really when we get down to it, they're not going to be able to? Will we see, like for college basketball, we see it get down to 11, 12-person roster?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely in play for a lot of schools because I'll be honest, you don't really need 13 scholarships because chances are most of those guys aren't going to hang around to be developed into something. I think 11's a really good number, and if you can save yourself a little money, save yourself a little heartache too, because you don't have 5 guys just sitting around just stewing over the fact that they're not playing. And like, I think that could be to your benefit. But if you're able to get it to where you can get. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're able to get to where some guys are willing to stick around and develop, then I think it's a different story, and that could particularly be the case in football, where there's so much of your development in football is related to your physical fitness and your strength and conditioning, and those things take time to build. And if you can get a program established where it's just understood that you're going to redshirt, then I think you could really see it be beneficial in football for programs to hit the max number of scholarships. Because if you got 20 guys in a freshman class who are going to redshirt and stick around, and maybe we can get to a place in college sports where there are actually binding revenue share agreements that keep players in a program for a couple of years, that could work out a lot differently in football. But in basketball, I really don't see a whole lot of programs with the resources or the need to scholarship 15 players.
Yeah. When you look at the news this morning from the Pac-12, CBS is going to be a partner for them, at least the first domino that we've seen for the media rights deal. What do you think that means for the Pac-12, and what does that mean maybe, because we know really the biggest thing for Memphis in terms of its previous conversations with the Pac-12 has been the money. What do you think this means for maybe the rest of the media rights deal, and what does this mean maybe for the type of money they can get and what that can mean down the road for Memphis?
Well, I mean, have you guys seen a specific payout on what the Pac-12 schools are going to make as part of their media rights deal? I mean, because I haven't seen a number yet. I've been busy today,
either.
But okay. So I think that's what it comes down to. And I bet Ed Scott, I bet he had a pretty good idea when he spoke to the media last week, sort of what the Pac-12 members are going to be making on this TV deal. And if it's not significantly more than what you're making in the AAC, then it's kind of a loss because of all the money you're going to spend on travel, not to mention the competitive disadvantage you would put yourself at by going out west multiple times a year when the other schools only have to make one trip of that caliber out to you. Mm-hmm. So I don't think anything that I've seen would really change the way that I view Memphis' situation. I understand that the counter argument to that is yes, but look, you could make more money on ticket sales because you'd be playing Boise State and Fresno State, Oregon State, Washington State. All those opponents are more interesting to fans than who Memphis plays now, and that's a valid point. But to me, the media rights deal would have to be significantly more than what you're making now to justify, going for that little carrot of increased ticket sales. So, I think the idea of Memphis going to the Pac-12 for football and to the Big East for everything else, boy, that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, I realize that's still maybe a few years off and maybe not something that's really been too seriously discussed in Memphis, but outside of an invitation from the ACC or the Big 12, that to me sounds like a pretty decent outcome for Memphis.
Yeah. Yeah,
David, how much more realignment stories this summer?
I hope none, Brett. I'm ready to talk about football. I've got my Phil Steele, my Athlon, and my Lindy's out. It's football season as far as I'm concerned. It's talking season, and the House settlement and all of that has given us so much to fill in terms of content and whatever. But at the end of the day, like, the reason we all fell in love with college sports is not because of the off-the-field legal drama. If any of us were interested in all that stuff, we would have gone and been lawyers or politicians or something else. But, the fun part of it is on the field. And, the beautiful thing about what I look at when I see this upcoming college football season is a chance for there to be some real parity in college football. And you look at the national championship odds sheet right now, and there's no clear-cut above the pack sort of favorite. I mean, you obviously have got your Texas and your Georgia and your Alabama and your LSU and, the Big Ten. I mean, but even the Big Ten, Ohio State and Michigan, they look like they might be down this year. So it's like, all right, can Penn State finally break through? Can Oregon finally get Phil Knight a national championship? And then you go out to the Big 12 and Arizona State and a lot of other teams from that league that look interesting too, and the rebirth of Clemson in the ACC. And so that's what I'm excited about. If we get more realignment news, I can't for the life of me kind of maybe figure out what that would be, because it feels like everything is calmed down in the ACC for now. It doesn't seem like the Big 12 is actively shopping. If we do, it's something that Greg Sankey is holding really close to the vest, that he's going to spring as a surprise on some people, and I'm just not sure I see that right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with
David,
you
we're
on
going to do grades. We're going to do end of the sports year grades for all 16 SEC places and the University of Memphis. But not only that, and we never have pluses or minuses, but we're going to do old-fashioned grading like football. We all went to school knowing that 60 to 69 was a D, 50 to 59 was a F, 70 to 79 was a C, and 80 to 89 was a B, and so forth. We're going to assign a percentage number for football, basketball, and baseball, and just see how many A's we come up with in the SEC. So I'm going to give you this right now. Give me a percentage grade for last year in football in the SEC.
Oh, it'd be a 82 for the SEC as a whole in football. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know that I disagree. I don't know that I disagree at all. Give me a basketball number.
Oh, a 99.
Yeah.
I think I agree, and a baseball number.
Well, I'd say 93. They got the A because they won the national title, but they did kind of struggle a little bit in the regionals and the supers.
Yeah, I like that answer.
Okay, on a curve, that's an A, isn't it?
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I was gonna say 92, so I was we were right on the same track there, David. You mentioned a couple of teams going into next season for football. One that is kind of a two-part question for you, because Florida State. I want to know your thoughts on Florida State going into the season. Obviously, the massively disappointing year last year. They go out there, they change their coaching staff up a little bit. They bring in a new quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, along with a ton of other transfers. What do you expect from Florida State this year, and what did you make of Thomas Castellanos' comments earlier today talking about their Week 1 matchup against Alabama, how excited he is to play them, and then the quote that is circulating everywhere, they don't have Nick Saban to save them.
It's funny, when you say things at Boston College, nobody notices.
That's right.
But when you say things at Florida State and you got Alabama on your schedule, people pay attention a little bit. And you got to remember, too, Thomas Castellanos was sort of let's just say, things ran their course at BC for him. They ran their course, right? Like, there wasn't the most amicable breakup there. So he's a little bit of a wild card. DJU came in last year, and, say what you will about his performance. He was always regarded, though, as a really kind of a model citizen. I'm not sure that's it for Thomas Castellanos, but, hey, maybe that swagger and a little bit of that edge is something that FSU needs. But it's a total reboot, man. I mean, new quarterback, 2 new coordinators, and it needed to be coming off of a 2-win season. But the thing is, they've gone so portal-heavy again. I mean, we are in is this year 6 of Mike Norvell? And it still doesn't feel like he has a foundation. It feels like he's trying to play a poor man's version of what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss in terms of reloading the thing through the portal every year, and he's just not been able to do it as consistently or as successfully. I mean, we're talking about a scenario here where if Florida State doesn't make a bowl, that's 4 losing seasons in 6 years for Mike Norvell. I mean, that's mind-blowing. And then you look at the schedule, and I think it's a high floor for Florida. Like, I'd be shocked if they don't make a bowl because they do have some of the easier ACC opponents on their schedule, but they do play Clemson and Miami as well. So it's, they don't have the SMU path, where SMU didn't play anybody from the ACC last year and basically had a cakewalk to the title game. So I see it as a likely sort of a 7-5 situation, and then FSU is going to have to decide: is this really what we signed up for? Is this really what we want to be as a program? And guys, I've got a story coming out. I don't know when it's coming out, but most overrated programs of the past decade. And Florida State is not only on that, but they are in a fairly prominent position on that list.
Here's one you can do, David. I always like to give you a column and feature ideas. Here's one you can do. The most overrated figures in the history of college football, and it would be Florida State's offensive coordinator as the poster person for it.
Well, Gus Malzahn, it's interesting because the program that he was the leader of, he was the leader of Auburn, and they've kind of slipped into that overrated territory as well. They got fed up with 8 or 9 wins under Gus, and the only thing that I would use to push back on you, Brett, about Gus being overrated is that, well, look at what the guys who have come after him have done at Auburn. But he was definitely overpaid. There's no doubt about that for the results he produced at Auburn.
I would counter, look at the ruins everywhere he's been of what he's left. And he was one of the biggest figures in the fissure, in the split, in the break at Arkansas that I don't know that the Razorback families come back together since what he did to Houston Nutt, what he was doing up there as a high school coach, forcing his way onto the staff, then what he did to Houston Nutt behind the scenes. That's one place. But Auburn's another place. Central Florida could be another place. You could. I don't know that I would argue Arkansas State, but everything he touches turns bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, there is some truth to that. And, boy, we're about to find out with UCF because they're turning back the clock and hiring Scott Frost to try to dig them out of, mediocrity and turn back the clock to when they had their glory 2017 season under Frost. And, I just don't know if that's going to happen. It's a real shame that Gus in Arkansas, never worked out because you would have thought that at some point he would end up being the coach there. And I think the ship has surely sailed there. Mm-hmm. I guess you never say never. Gus, I guess, is still young enough to maybe get one last crack at it if he were to have a great season as the OC at Florida State and if things were really to go south with Pittman at Arkansas. But, I think there'd be about 7 or 8 candidates ahead of Gus if things go that direction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And he's no longer the young whippersnapper either. Gus is around 57 or 58. That's no longer young man in a hurry coming off the practice fields at Hughes and Shiloh Christian and Springdale and writing his book. And all his book was a variation of the wing T. He's never done one thing that was original. And you're right about Scott Frost. And anywhere, and there's a couple of them this year in college football, that people are trying that second act of places. It very rarely works. And this is one of the many great things. And I know you know it, David, being a Tennessee alum. Not only did General Neyland have 2 acts, he had 3 acts. And, oh, by the way, was interrupted by 2 wars in reason why he had to stop his coaching. But he was round 3 at Tennessee and did a great job. Scott Frost, it won't be like the first time, and the other places that are trying it, it's never like the first time.
No, it's not. Another example is Rich Rodriguez getting another crack at the West Virginia job. That is, to me, it just lacks creativity. And guys like Gus Malzahn and Rich Rodriguez, who made their name in the early 2000s with innovative offensive schemes, guys, those schemes aren't innovative anymore. The time has clearly passed them by. You go for the nostalgia hire, and then you pass on someone like a Brian Hartline at Ohio State who interviews for that West Virginia job, who's shy of 40, one of the best recruiters out there, just has been a part of 2 national championship staffs at Ohio State under 2 different coaches. And it's that's the direction you ought to be going if you want to push your program forward. You don't need to be turning back the clock trying to relive the glory days. I don't know. Would Memphis fans be fired up if Memphis went out and hired Justin Fuente whenever Ryan Silverfield's tenure is up? I don't know. The nostalgia thing and the retread hires, especially when it's somebody who's already been at the school, it just feels a little shallow to me. But we got 2 of them in really prominent positions this year with Scott Frost at UCF and Rich Rod going back to WVU.
Yeah, we absolutely do. David, I want to ask you about some of these NBA draft prospects that played college basketball last year that are in the range that the Memphis Grizzlies will be making a first-round selection if they keep this number 16 pick. I want your feedback on some of these fits you think for the Memphis Grizzlies after what you saw from these guys in college. I want to start with maybe one of the biggest risers from the draft prospect, a guy that we didn't see much of last year at Washington State, Cedric Coward. What do you make of Cedric Coward and his fit potentially with the Grizzlies?
Yeah, so he's the guy who I mocked to the Grizzlies last week. And a guy that didn't play this past season a whole lot due to injury, but he fits the profile of what the Grizzlies look for in the sense that he's an older prospect. He was in college for 4 years, started at a D3, played a couple years at Eastern Washington, then finished up with an injury-plagued season at Washington State. 6'5", but more like 7'2" on the wingspan. Just an absurdly long wing, and the type of player who could be the versatile defensive stopper that they've so long craved and really didn't have this past season. He can shoot it, too. And so there's no team in the NBA that can't use a player like that who's got great length and athleticism and can shoot from the outside. The Grizzlies absolutely could. So if he's there, I love Cedric Coward to Memphis.
What about Liam McNeely?
And it worked last year. It worked last year with the pick out of Washington State for the Grizzlies.
Sure did.
Sure did. Yeah, a shooting wing who could play some defense there with Jalen Wells. Why not go back to the well? Yeah. I think there could be some real benefit to that. Liam McNeely definitely has got a ton of offensive upside. He can score in a variety of ways. He was injury plagued at UConn, so he's going to get knocked when people just look at his numbers and say, "Oh, well, his numbers don't stack up real well compared to the other guys at his position and in this class," and that's true. But he got a late start to the season due to injury, then was banged up during the year, and UConn was asking a ton of this guy because they just didn't have a ton of offensive firepower. They needed him to kind of run the operation offensively as an injury-plagued freshman. And so if you're able to sort of look past some of the circumstances he was in, dude with tremendous, tremendous offensive upside. Not sure I could see him helping the Memphis Grizzlies a ton, but maybe taking the Cam Spencer route, another guy who was from UConn. He's a little bigger than Cam, maybe a little bit more of maybe eventually a little bit better at finishing at the rim because of his size. But if you're looking for a comparison, that's not a bad one.
I like that comparison a ton. What do you make of what's going on with Ace Bailey? Did you see any of this type of stuff while he was at Rutgers or throughout his recruiting process before Rutgers, of kind of the way that he and his team are handling this draft process of canceling visits? I don't know if anything's happened in the last couple of days, but as of Thursday night, had not visited any NBA team before the draft. Were any of these signs there, or is this kind of something new with maybe the guys that are around him as he goes to the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of interpret it as like Ace Bailey attempting to dictate where he lands and maybe indicating that Philadelphia is not his preferred landing destination. Because if he was concerned about being getting picked as early as possible in the draft, then he would absolutely be working out for Philadelphia and be doing everything in his power to try and impress Philly. Clearly, that's not something that is important to him. So to me, it just suggests that he and his agent have probably decided that they'd rather him go 4 or 5 or 6 or wherever. I don't necessarily agree with that line of thinking. I think going and apprenticing under Paul George for a competitive franchise sounds like a really good outcome for a very, very, very young prospect. But if that's not what they want to do, then there's a chance he ends up in Charlotte or in Utah or I've got him going to Washington. I don't think any of those situations are necessarily desirable. I mean, those are all 3 franchises that are really struggling. Now, again, you're talking about a 19-year-old player, so he's got room to grow with that franchise wherever he ends up. But I mean, I just think about the development that you could get within a competing franchise with a guy like Paul George as your mentor and as your vet. Like, to me, that seems like a really good situation to be in. But it's very evident that Ace Bailey and his people feel differently.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird story.
David, where does Adu Tiero go, and does he help someone?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have him mocked in the first round. he could be an NBA player though because of the size and athleticism. He could guard 1 through 4. The thing with Aduthiero, and he got better at it at Arkansas this past season, was shooting the 3 ball. I mean, that's probably the swing skill for him because his first couple of years at Kentucky, you got to remember too, this is a guy who signed to play at Cal under Cal at Kentucky, but he wasn't your McDonald's All-American. He wasn't a 5-star guy. He was a developmental project, and one of the few who you can really look at, Cal over the years taking a swing on a unheralded prospect and then developing that player. So that's something that John Calipari actually did, and I think deserves a little bit of credit for, because Aduthiero at minimum is probably going to be like a 2-way player, a guy who will get some spot time in the NBA due to injuries. But unless he really dials in the outside shot, I don't know that he'll ever be anything more than kind of a roster filler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's going to be fun Wednesday night watching the NBA draft, see where all these guys... I like this draft a lot more than I liked last year's draft, because last year was a lot of international guys. This year it is full of guys that played college basketball, so I feel like we've seen a lot of these guys more than maybe some of those top guys in last year's draft. But David, as always, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll do it again next Monday.
No, I really will, and that's a great point, Bryant, because all 10 of the guys that I have in my top 10 in the mock, they all played college basketball. College basketball is in a great place in terms of the talent that's in the sport. So, that will be on display Wednesday night, no doubt. But I appreciate it, guys. We'll talk next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, David.
Thank you, David.
David Cobb joining us from CBS Sports, where he covers college football and college basketball. And because of all of the college talent that is making their way to the next level, helping out with their draft coverage as well. He mentioned his mock draft in there a couple of times, so go check that out over at CBS Sports. But we need to get to another break. When we return, we'll talk a little bit about the NBA draft. We'll talk about what the Grizzlies are going to do, what they could do Wednesday night with that number 16th pick. We'll do that next on Sports Time.
This is Troy Five-Ash, owner of Five-Ash Roofing. In these uncertain economic times, there are so many things as a contractor and a business owner that I cannot control. The rising cost of materials, not to mention fuel and transportation costs. In the last 2 years, shingle prices have almost doubled, and commercial materials have doubled. I don't have to tell you what fuel costs these days. If you know what I can control, how much markup I put on a project. I have always prided myself in knowing I never gouge a customer. But in an effort to ensure my crews have work and my customers are being treated fairly, I have lowered my profit margin, hoping to give you a price you can live with and keeping my crews busy. So if you need a roof or gutters, please give us a call. Five-Ash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofer.com. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofer.com. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofer.com. Five-Ash Roofing, it's what we do.
It's time to turn corners and turn heads in your new Gossett Kia from Gossett Kia, 1900 Covington Pike. Discover peace of mind in your new Kia with Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. How about $5 a day in 2025 Kia K4 LXS, $150 a month. 2025 Kia K5 LXS, we Gossett $265 a month. 2025 Sportage $275 a month. And 2025 Kia Telluride S $359 a month. We got some covered for every family and every budget at Gossett Kia on the Pike. All $49.99 new signing, 24-month lease. Ask for Bobby J. He's waiting to put you in your new Kia today. Gossett Kia, 1900 Covington Pike, online, KiaCovingtonPike.com.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
Acquisition fee $20,000 per year. K4 SE 137 7210, MSRP 24340, K5, S536 6209, MSRP 29170, Sportage, SG 271 1755, MSRP 34115, Telluride, SG 66 2001, MSRP 41060. Must finance through KFA, excludes tax title and license with approved credit dealer stock only. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through 07225.
Corky's barbecue. Cooking it up.
Down home way, hit me smoke flavor like the good old days.
Hey, y'all, Jimmy Stone over here with Corky's Barbecue. Catering is our specialty. Millions have trusted Corky's to cater their events for 40 years. As we make it easy to eat and delicious for your guests. Whether it's 50 people or a crowd of thousands, our experienced team comes to your location, sets up, serves, and ensures everyone enjoys Corky's all-you-can-eat barbecue buffet, starting at only $7.99 per person. You can't beat it. With 40 years of experience, it's easy to see why customers choose Corky's time and time again for all of their catering needs. Visit Corky'sBBQ.com to book us for your next order.
Encore flavor, Corky's barbecue.
This traffic brought to you by Raleigh Tire Auto Service, your local family-owned business for over 60 years.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. Watching the build over here on I-40 East as you come past Hollywood, Warford, as that traffic works your way over towards White Station. Busy in the Midtown area, right on schedule southbound on 240 here at Norris. Trying to get south of Memphis, been in pretty good shape so far. However, there's been a few showers there south of Memphis and plenty of radar on 55 and through parts of DeSoto County. Weimer's Jewelry is your diamond engagement ring headquarters this bridal season. Stop by and see them this week at Weimer's Jewelry. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Brian Brett with you live and local inside our Family Leisure studio. We got to talk the draft, only a couple days away from the first round Wednesday night. And we know as of right now, the Grizzlies have the number 16 pick in the first round after the trade to send Desmond Bane down to Orlando. They will be picking in the top 20. And we'll see. Obviously, still opportunity for that draft pick to be moved, whether it's the Grizzlies moving up or down or out of the first round completely. But as of right now, number 16, we also know that there's a new team in the top 10 after the Kevin Durant trade yesterday. The Phoenix Suns now hold the number 10 pick after getting that in the trade from the Houston Rockets. But a lot of things that the Grizzlies can do with that first-round draft pick, but at least, like I mentioned, right now, they'll be in that top 20 at number 16. I think some good players in that area that they could go out there and get.
Do we really believe when it comes 16th draft pick time that Memphis makes it and Memphis keeps that player and he's on the opening night roster in October?
I don't. If I had to pick one side or the other, I would say that they trade that picks at some point, whether it is on draft night or if it's after. Somewhere along the way, I think that pick is moved just based on seeing what this front office has done in previous drafts. I would not be surprised at all if they move that. We already know that Zach Kleiman has said they do not want to get younger, and certainly drafting a player would make you younger. So I don't know. I would say I think anything's up in the air. I think anything's in play. But if you made me choose one way or the other, I would say they trade this pick.
Trade to improve their draft position and draft earlier, or package that pick with a more proven player and other assets?
Yeah, I think probably trade it and get out of the first round completely and get something in return, somebody that has NBA experience in return. It feels like that's kind of the way they want to go in terms of trades. So yeah, I think it would be, if there is a trade, at least to me, it would be get out of the first round completely and try to get some sort of guy that has NBA experience that you can add some depth and some experience to this roster.
Brian, when I look at these mock drafts, I see Trey Johnson, the player at Texas, that I just fell in love with. Saw him in person twice last year at Oxford against Ole Miss and in Fayetteville against Arkansas, and he was dynamite both times. And what he did down the stretch, Texas really got in the tournament because of him. I also see the point guard at Oklahoma, Fears.
Yeah.
I don't remember him doing much that day we were in Oxford. I don't have the box score in front of me, but did he have a particularly good? I don't remember him doing anything.
No, I don't remember him having a great day that game against Ole Miss. I'm trying to pull up his box score from that game to see what he did.
He was okay at Fayetteville. When I saw OU in Fayetteville, I saw both Texas and OU in Oxford and in Fayetteville, and just from those nights, Trey Johnson, much better player. But I remember a bench player in Oxford having more points than he did that day, but I can't recall his name.
Yeah, no, he had an okay game that day, nothing great. 13 points, 4 for 14 from the field, but did add 7 assists and 5 rebounds. So nothing crazy in that game against Ole Miss, but had a really nice season for Oklahoma. Was certainly one of their big time players. But yeah, those are.
But we didn't talk about him driving home.
No, certainly not. Just did not have a great game that night against Ole Miss, and it looks like, looking at multiple mock drafts, it looks like he's a guy that, it looks like in that top 10, he'll go somewhere, and same thing for Trey Johnson. I'm seeing some mock drafts that have Trey Johnson going as early as number 3. I see other mock drafts that have him going, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that range. So it feels like kind of maybe all over the place with Trey Johnson, which kind of surprises me because I feel like he's a top 5 pick.
I did too.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about him a ton last year after seeing him and what he was able to do. In terms of guys, if the Grizzlies stay at number 16, in terms of guys that they get, ESPN released a mock draft earlier today with some of the things that they've been hearing, and they had Cedric Coward going to the Grizzlies. David Cobb said that's a guy that he mocked to the Grizzlies when he did his mock draft last week, and in this ESPN report, it says that the Grizzlies have worked out Cedric Coward. I think that's a guy that, it would certainly be more of a, it'd probably take a little bit of time for him. It even says in this ESPN story that he is not yet to 3-on-3 workouts yet because of that injury, that when he worked out in Memphis, it was completely 1-on-0, no defense at all for his workout. But he's a guy that has completely blown up since the end of the season, since doing that draft process. That'd be a pick that if the Grizzlies do make a pick at 16, I would not mind that selection at all.
And a lot of rankings today from ESPN. Did you see all the tiers? It is tier season, and tiers in college football.
Oh man,
some of it should be spelled TEARS instead of TIERS.
I like that.
But the Grizzlies down in a tier that's a long way from making anything happen for next year. And I also saw where the Grizzlies are 66-1 to win it all next year.
Yeah. No, you mentioned it. They're in that tier, in the tiers. I have this up on ESPN that they posted earlier today. Power rankings. They are 15th in terms of power rankings in the NBA. I was looking last night on FanDuel. I saw that they had already had the odds up for next year's championship. I think they had the 15th best odds as well on FanDuel to win the NBA championship next year. So, and I think that was, I looked at the teams in front of them. I think that was 7th or 8th in the Western Conference, 7th or 8th best odds in the Western Conference, maybe even further back than that, maybe even 9 or 10. But yeah, I mean, right now they are not in a great spot. But you got to imagine after seeing the Desmond Bane move, more moves are on the way, and this front office is going to look to improve this roster as much as they can before opening day.
Yeah, I just can't believe that's the only deal.
No way. And, that's kind of, we'll talk to DeMichael Cole here in about 20 minutes or so and kind of get his thoughts and what he's heard over the last week since that trade. But, he kind of told us last week that, this is the first trade of more, that there's definitely more down the line. You don't just make that trade and just that be the end-all, be-all. And we could see some pieces and or players from that deal get moved before this offseason's over. I know a lot of people talking about Cole Anthony being a guy that the Grizzlies might move, a guy that maybe other teams value as a backup point guard for their team, that the Grizzlies could get something in return. So I feel like we could see a lot of moves, and I feel like we could could see a move, in the next couple of days with the Grizzlies maybe doing something around the draft. We'll just have to wait and see what they decide to do. But it feels like, we had the Kevin Durant trade yesterday. It feels like we're about to see, everyone talking about this being a very eventful offseason. It feels like starting today and even until the NBA draft, we can start seeing a lot of moves as teams really ramp up the offseason.
NBA MVP for next year, the best odds, Nikola Jokic 2-1, SGA plus 225, that's 9-4, Luka 13-2, that's plus 650, Giannis 7-1, Anthony Edwards 9-1, Wemby 18-1, Cade Cunningham 28-1. You've got to go way down there. And we thought this was going to be the prime years that he was 2-1, and he was mentioned every year as maybe next year's MVP. Ja Morant 125-1, wow. Same odds as a aging Steph Curry.
Wow, yeah, and I mean you look at the top. Those are a couple guys that have really separated themselves from everybody else. They were in the battle this year for MVP. It was who's going to win it, Jokic or SGA, and ultimately SGA wins it. So I'm not surprised at all with those two guys being at the top and kind of running away from everybody else in terms of favorites for next year. But yeah, I mean for Ja Morant, we know what these last couple of seasons have been. It's been a lot, when it comes to injuries, to off-the-court stuff. It's been a lot. And so, I think the hope is that, next year it can be a successful season on the court and, maybe it can surprise some people. But you're right, in terms of what we thought it was going to be a couple years ago, just even, 2 years ago, we thought that, in 2025, getting ready for the draft, that we were going to be talking about already a big season for the Grizzlies and a lot more success, and that would include Ja Morant. And so, yeah, it's surprising to see where the Grizzlies are today in terms of NBA championship odds and even where Ja Morant is for MVP odds. If you had told me that a couple years ago, I'd say that's really hard to believe.
We wouldn't have believed it. We thought he would probably already have an MVP award, and odds for a second one would be a lot better than 125-1. The Grizzlies, as I mentioned, they are 66-1 next year, courtesy of the good people at sportsbetting.ag, and the Thunder 12-5, the best odds. In the East, the first team in the East is Cleveland.
Yeah,
they're ahead of the Knicks and of the Magic.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, you saw all the success that they had in the regular season. It just got to the playoffs, and they came up short. And so, you got to imagine that, with this core running it back next year, that, they'll probably have a lot more success like they did last year in the regular season. It's just, can they do it in the postseason next year? And I think, maybe with some of that experience last year in the postseason, that maybe next year is the year that they can go on a deep run. So, I mean, that doesn't surprise me because you look, OKC was the most dominant team in the West, and Cleveland was the most dominant team in the East all of the regular season. So that doesn't surprise me, but behind them it gets a little sketchy for the rest of the Eastern Conference, especially with that injury last night to Tyrese Halliburton, what that can mean for the Pacers. Because I think if Tyrese Halliburton hadn't gotten injured last night, and we're just talking about the Thunder won, I think you would see the Pacers having odds in the top 5 or so, and now you look at them now, and they're not anywhere close to being in the top 5 or top 3 for odds to win it next year.
Yeah, yesterday took a strange twist for next year with Kevin Durant to a team that had a great season this year, of course, in the West with the Rockets and with Halliburton. Did it sting at all to you to see Oklahoma City standing there on the stage with the Larry O'Brien Trophy, or have we already factored that in, that they were going to get one before the Grizzlies?
Oh yeah, I think you had to have factored that in when you saw what they were doing last year and what they did this year, and just how dominant they were. It was expected, and then they went out and did it. And I think just the biggest thing for me watching them on that stage last night is, I mean, what the type of party Sam Presti should still be having after really being the laughingstock of the entire NBA. I mean, I remember back when he was making all these trades and stockpiling all these first-round picks, and everyone was kind of making fun of him, saying, well, what are you going to do with all those first-rounders? You can't just draft, have 50 draft picks in every first round every year. And, he stuck to what he thought would work, and now it's already showing it has worked out. He already has one champion, and championship, and now everyone talking about more to come in the future. And so, I hope he's still partying. I hope he doesn't stop partying until the start of the regular season next year.
But I thought when the Cubs won it in 2016, that was the first of 2 or 3 or 4 over 8 or 10 year stretch. I guess they still could get to that, but I don't think they will. So if he stops at just one, that wasn't enough.
Well, and that's what Landon and I talked about that in the opening segment of every team that kind of gets that first one. We talk about, well, now this is the dynastic run. They're gonna this isn't the end of it, and so you definitely. We're talking right now of kind of heat in the moment being more than one. But, yeah, you never know what happens. I mean, let that injury hit or let something happen, and it could only be one for OKC.
Here's another one from baseball, Landon's Mets. For them to just have won that one with Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry, Lynn Dykstra, that young core had good veterans, Mookie Wilson, Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter, just to get one in 86. They're still looking for another one since then. They got 69, they got 86. That's it. And we all kind of were thinking, that was going to be a cluster of them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And, like you said, we're still looking for the next one. And so who knows what the future is for OKC. But at least right now, it looks really, really bright for them. But they got to go out there and execute it. And it starts next year being that hunted team, and we'll see what they can do. But definitely now the offseason officially here. If it wasn't already here, definitely officially here now with the NBA Finals done. But we need to get to another break. When we come back, it'll be time for Big Number of the Day.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Hey everybody, it's summer, so come and get your new and affordable 2026 All-Star Chevy Equinox right here in Olive Branch. Financing is down to 6.6% for 72 months. All new 2025 Silverados with $6,500 cash back and financing down to 2.9 for 36 months. It's here, so go big and get a new Silverado 2500 HD with financing as low as 3.9 for 60 months. And not one payment for 90 days. And your good credit deserves it. If you're law enforcement, first responder, healthcare, military, education, recent grad, you get an extra $500 bonus. And all the certified and pre-owned cars you want, like this Corvette Stingray and more Tahoes and Silverados, then you'll find in one place, anywhere, right here in Olive Branch. If you have any vehicle you want to sell, bring it here to All-Star Chevy in Olive Branch and get the most money for it today. Vacation road trips and all your summer fun begins right here in Olive Branch with our friends at All-Star Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. AllStarAutoGroup.com.
If wedding bells are in your future, you need an unforgettable engagement ring from a jeweler you can trust. And that's been James Gaddis Jewelers for over 60 years. With a huge selection and the best prices, James Gaddis is a master jeweler and diamondologist. Beautiful jewelry from James Gaddis is always the right choice. Choose from rings to earrings, necklaces to bracelets, and gemstones to watches. Layaway and financing available. James Gaddis Jewelers, 4900 Poplar, online at GaddisJewelers.com, and Instagram at Gaddis Jewelers. Say I do at James Gaddis Jewelers.
650 acquisition fee, 20,000 miles per year. K4 SE 137 210, MSRP 24,340, K5 SI 36,6209, MSRP 29,170, Sportage SG 271,1755, MSRP 34,115, Telluride SG 66 2001, MSRP 41,060. Must finance through KFA, excludes tax title and license with approved credit dealer stock only. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through 07220.
Hey, Jeff Allen, I hear the Gossett Kia Summer Sticker Sales event is on now at Gossett Kia South on Mount Moriah.
It sure is, Randy, and listen to this. I've got a 2025 Kia K4 LXS at $150 a month. That's $5 a day for a new ride. 2025 Kia K5 LXS, $265 a month. 2025 Kia Sportage X-Line, $275 a month. Plus, 2025 Kia Telluride S front-wheel drive, $359 per month. All $49.99 due at signing, 24-month lease.
Plus a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty in the all-new 2026 EV9 with 72 months at 3.49 available.
So if you live in Horn Lake, South Haven, Olive Branch, or Memphis, you'll be happy at Gossett Kia on Mount Moriah.
Briggs Powder Coating for a beautiful finish every time. Briggs Powder Coating specializes in automotive, ornamental, residential, and industrial coating. With two conveyor lines and the largest match ovens in the Mid-South, Briggs can accommodate all of your powder coating needs. Locally owned and operated since 2002, Briggs Powder Coating will customize a beautiful finish just for you. Drop
Those who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, for speedy security. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
Big Daddy.
Hello, Big Brand.
It's a guy, he wants to be big, then he gets big, he doesn't want to be big anymore, then he gets small, but the suit's too big.
Big Daddy.
The big boy.
You're a big guy. I think she's trying to pull a fast one on Big Daddy.
The big number of the day.
Well, my big number today is the number 1, and it comes from last night's victory for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It is not 1 because it's the first championship for the Thunder. It has to do with SGA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the first player in NBA history to win the scoring title, win MVP, win Finals MVP, and win multiple Game 7s all in one season. SGA, just a remarkable year for him, what he was able to do as that leader for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And, it was funny because there were times throughout this playoffs and certainly throughout the finals, especially that 40-point game from Jalen Williams, where we were going, oh, well, Jalen Williams was the best player out there, and SGA, it was a fine game for him. And you'd look at the box scores, and you'd have 30 points. He's out there averaging over 30 points in the playoffs, and we're going, okay, he's having a fine game, he's having an okay game. But that just shows how great of a season it was from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and a really impressive number there for all of the accomplishments he had this season.
Yeah, clean sweep for him, and last night unanimous in being the MVP. I don't know how you could have voted for anybody else as the MVP of the finals. I mean, to join a list of Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaquille O'Neal, and Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, that, you're headed, if you just fill out the back of the basketball card at all, you're headed to the Hall of Fame. My big number is 244. 244. That was the number of days from opening night of this NBA season until the last night, which was last night. 244 days, and few, if any, had Oklahoma City on night number 1. Everybody kind of had them last night. Mm-hmm. And in the last 10 years, the NBA it's really become the unpredictable sport. It wasn't for a long time. It was the closed society for a long time, but 8 out of 10 different winners, and Boston and the Lakers only winning at one time in those 10 years. I don't know if we'll go another stretch that those two stay out of the mix that much.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. But you're right. It was a lot of different. It was a lot of new, and I think that's good for the NBA. To have so many teams being involved and having that opportunity to win a championship. And I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier of we thought that the Grizzlies would be in this position, that they would at least be close to getting that NBA Finals, if not already. And the fact that you add another team to that list that now has an NBA final, on a team that you compared yourself to a lot a couple years ago in the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think there was a little bit of hurt in that they were able to do that before you were able to, especially with kind of the hopes that we had for this Grizzlies team.
Yeah, where it did not hurt, we know it categorically it did not hurt the NBA at rights fee time, because they're starting the new big deal next year.
Yeah, no, and they are definitely excited about that. I mean, you're seeing a lot of stuff now with the game finally being over of, hey, it's going to be a lot of new next year, and people putting out things for what we will see next year in the NBA. And so it's going to look a lot different. We're going to have to kind of retrain ourselves of what those what the big networks are for the NBA going forward. But now it's a super quick turnaround. I mean, it's hard to believe that we just crowned the NBA champion last night, and then Wednesday we're going to turn around and have the NBA draft, and then we're going to have free agency, summer league, all of that. It really is fast-paced from here, and we'll see how many deals, how many moves we see around the NBA. But definitely congrats to the Oklahoma City Thunder, because that was impressive what they did this year.
Aren't we going to have regular Sunday night NBC games falling right after the NFL season ends? And I think we're going to have a Tuesday night doubleheader on NBC, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I forgot what the exact thing I saw was, but it was something about like NBC starting in the fall when it comes to the NFL football season throughout. It's like Sunday nights, every single Sunday night from the start of the NFL season until I forget the date, but it's way out there. Something like the summer is going to have either an NFL or an NBA game on it. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of NBC, and I'm excited for it. I know, NBC's done a really nice job, late in this season of really starting to promote what they're going to be doing over at NBC for the NBA. And so I think it's got a lot of people excited. And then we also know Amazon Prime is going to play a factor as well, which will make it difficult for some people, and a lot of people will be turning to the streaming. But I think good things on the horizon for the NBA with their new media deal.
It's easy for me to find Channel 5.
That's right.
I know where that is.
Very easy. Those local channels, they make it easy. But Amazon Prime is very
that's
different.
Darian's station.
That's exactly right. So I know he's going to have some fun with the NBA coming to NBC. But we need to wrap up this second hour and get to another break. When we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with the NBA, talking a ton of Grizzlies. That's because DeMichael Cole, the Grizzlies beat writer over at the Commercial Appeal, he's going to join us next. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Sports Time.
Everything today is technologically based. Well, except maybe you. If you're struggling with tech, no matter what kind, call Tech for You. Tech for You for TVs, home theaters, cameras, smart locks, digital storage, and more. Tech for You makes it simple and affordable. 697-9695. Make your home safe, comfortable, and up to date with Tech for You. Stop struggling with tech. Call 697-9695. Veteran owner operated Tech for You. Technology simplified.
When you switch to Progressive, you could save money in your home and auto. Then you could put that money towards some of the surprisingly more expensive things in life.
Attention passengers, we've reached 10,000 feet and internet is now available for purchase. I just paid hundreds for this flight, and you can't even throw an internet? I'll just take the fruit pretzels. Sorry, but I do have snack boxes for sale. I'm just gonna sleep. In that case, we are selling pillows and blankets as well. I'll just breathe. That's free, right?
Life costs a lot, so bundle and you could save with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates, other insurers, not available in all states.
Hey, it's Mark and Ronnie at Gossett Hyundai South on Mount Moriah with his brand spanking new dealership. What's up, dude?
Randy, not only do I have a great new dealership, we've got service available that's less wait time than anyone in town. 16 service stays and immediate appointments available. Plus, a 2025 Hyundai Tucson SE, $288.75 per month and 3.99% available for 72 months. 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe SEL, $349.89 per month and 3.99 up to 60 months available. And a 2024 Hyundai Santa Cruz XRT all-wheel drive, $37,180. That's $5,000 off MSRP.
Plus America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. So get to Gossett Hyundai South, 2660 Mount Moriah, or shop online anytime. HyundaiMountMoriah.com.
Jason's Deli. When you're dining in or picking up curbside, you can expect wholesome food and no surprises, just delicious sandwiches, crisp salads, and quick quality meals made with the freshest ingredients and no artificial trans fats, MSG, high fructose corn syrup, or artificial colors and dyes. Around here, a lot of thought goes into what we put into our food and what we take out of it, because you're not just taking a bite, you're getting a taste of who we are. New items are constantly being created to expand our menu for all tastes and special diets with vegan and gluten-free options available. Convenience and on-time delivery you can count on. It's just a click away at jasonsdeli.com, so whether you need to feed 5 people or 5,000, the team at Jason's Deli, they have the credentials and the commitment to keep you satisfied. Freshness is nearby at Jason's Deli with locations at Ridgeway in the Park Place Center, Poplar and Highland, Germantown Road in Cordova, and on Goodman Road in Olive Branch. Jason's Deli. It's wholesome food and no surprises.
This is Troy Fiveash, owner of Fiveash Roofing. In these uncertain economic times, there are so many things as a contractor and a business owner that I cannot control. The rising cost of materials, not to mention fuel and transportation costs. In the last 2 years, shingle prices have almost doubled, and commercial materials have doubled. I don't have to tell you what fuel costs these days. But you know what I can control? How much markup I put on a project. I have always prided myself in knowing I never gouge a customer. But in an effort to ensure my crews have work and my customers are being treated fairly, I have lowered my profit margin, hoping to give you a price you can live with and keeping my crews busy. So if you need a roof or gutters, please give us a call. Fiveash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofing.com. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofing.com. 367-0050 or MemphisRoofing.com. Fiveash Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you.
This traffic report brought to you by Triangle Meat Company, feeding Memphis since 1967. Open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, 4790 Summer Avenue. Trust Triangle Meat Company.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. Still dodging a few rain showers out here as rush hour traffic really gets into full swing, especially on 55 southbound down through South Haven as you work your way south of Memphis this afternoon. Midtown traffic trying its best to get a little bit busy on I-40 up by Chelsea. Dandelions, Crabgrass, Lawn Solution says, hey, give them a call here in Memphis at 867-5626. That's Lawn Solutions. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis with John Martin. Weekdays from 11 to 1. Now, back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour brought to you by Jaguar Land Rover Club Series. Once again,
Say you stand by your man.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Brian Landon with you for this final hour on this Monday afternoon. Before we get to DeMichael, I want to thank Brett for joining us. He mentioned when he joined us that a power line, there was a wreck in front of his house, power line went down, electricity completely out in his house. So obviously dealing with stuff, but was nice enough to join us.
What a trooper.
What a trooper. Joined us for the last hour and a half. So a big thank you to him. But we'll talk to him again tomorrow afternoon. He'll be here for the entire show tomorrow. Obviously, those circumstances changed some things today. But right now, we got to talk Grizzlies, and we talk to them every Monday afternoon with DeMichael Cole, the Grizzlies beat writer over at the Commercial Appeal. DeMichael, thanks so much for joining us. I know a lot of Grizzly stuff we got to talk about, but I do want to start off with the NBA Finals last night. Oklahoma City getting the win, getting their first NBA championship. What did you make of what you saw all season? You saw them very close up here in Memphis, the Oklahoma City Thunders. What did you make of their season and them winning it? It feels like everyone's saying, at least right now, that this is the first of more to come for the Thunder. What did you make of the Thunder this season?
Yeah, I mean, they were a strong team for all year long. Like, I know people like to throw asterisks on, like, oh, if this guy didn't get hurt, they wouldn't have done this, or if this guy. But at the same time, that was a 68-win team that dominated all season. So no matter how they won, you can't really argue too much that they weren't deserving, especially when you stockpiled the last two seasons together, what they've done as, one seed both years. And, they learned a lot in the playoffs last year, and they learned a lot in the playoffs this year, too. I mean, it's some really tough series, a couple 7-game series for them, and, some injuries in both of those series and whatnot that kind of, you could say played into their favor. But I think it's a deserving champion and, a team that's really built for the long haul. I think the league is all going to kind of like, that's something you could take from that run, is that they're really built. They're built for the long haul.
Yeah, no, they absolutely are. I mean, we've talked about it a couple times today of just Sam Presti and kind of stockpiling those first-round picks. And at the time when he was doing it, kind of became the laughingstock of the NBA. A lot of people poking fun at what OKC was doing, but now we're seeing that pay off right now, and it feels like going to pay off in the future with a lot of first rounds still left to use in future drafts. So it feels like they're going to be around for a while in OKC. be. When it comes to the now offseason, now that the NBA Finals officially done, it feels like a lot of moves coming maybe this week before the draft, certainly after the draft. What did you make of Kevin Durant, and what do you think? Do you expect a lot of movement across the league before the draft starts on Wednesday?
Starting with the Kevin Durant thing, Houston was one of the rumor spots for a while. Makes a lot of sense. From an asset standpoint, Houston was able to keep like Reed Shepherd, Jabari Smith, and Cam Whitmore. Like they were really able to hold on to some guys that some young, nice pieces that they have that could be for the future post Kevin Durant, or some guys who they could potentially package in another deal and continue to, really build on what they have. So, it's a strong move by Houston. It's a timely move for them. It's one of those situations where, again, we've seen these other young teams, OKC before and now Houston, take advantage of when the window opens, they get more aggressive. And, that's kind of been a critique, from a lot of us here in Memphis. Like when the Grizzlies window opened, they didn't necessarily get more aggressive. And I mean, yeah, they targeted, like I reported last week, they targeted Kevin Durant in the past, and Mikal Bridges and things like that, but they didn't close the deal. Whereas OKC said, okay, this is our window. Josh Giddey, you're a nice young player that we love, that we have, but guess what? We need to win right now. Alex Caruso, come on in. You trade one of your nice young players, and then you go out and get Isaiah Hartenstein, right? You pay him, a nice substantial contract. 2 years, I think it was $87 million. So when it was time to make those moves, Houston now, just like OKC, they weren't afraid, to make that big move that's going to really take you to that next level. And maybe to a lesser degree, Marcus Smart was that for Memphis, but at the same time, it was after, you lost Dylan Brooks. So it was more kind of like a replacement type thing than adding on to what, you've built, the last few years. So that's where I'm on that. I think it's a strong move for Houston. I'm not saying it's going to make them, the team, the favorite out of the West or anything, but it definitely is a move that puts them in a better position to compete with OKC and pretty much anyone else. And then as far as, the next few days goes, I think you'll see some things, more so internally, especially with the Grizzlies. Starting today, you can talk to your own free agents. You still technically can't talk to, free agents on other teams until June 30th at I think 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern time. But as of right now, you got basically a week head start before June 30th, where you could talk to your free agents and see what you can get done.
Yeah. No, well, we'll see. It feels like it's going to be a busy offseason. You wrote earlier this morning a little bit about the Grizzlies and the draft on Wednesday. We talked with you last week about what you thought would happen with this 16th pick now that the Grizzlies have it. Do you think that that's something that could be moved? Do you think that the Grizzlies will make a pick at number 16? What do you think happens for the Grizzlies in the first round on Wednesday?
Oh, it definitely could be moved. Yeah, I think we can say that definitively. But I think there is still also, like, if they keep the pick, I feel, that that's going to be a player, that's going to be a wing player. It's going to be someone who they feel strong about on the defensive end. Because right now, you're not rebuilding. You're kind of retooling this thing around Ja and Jaren in terms of how you want it to look as you compete for the foreseeable future. And in that case, you want two-way wings. That is something that the Grizzlies have a lot of value in. That's something that they are really, strong about. Like, we want two-way wings. So with that being the case, I think that type of player has to be there for them to confidently pick at 16. If not, we could see some other type of movement or whatever the case may be. But in my opinion, I still believe that they'll draft at 16. But with that being said, it makes a lot of sense for them to move out of 16, not to move back, in my opinion, but more so to target a player from another team.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen a lot of mock drafts, especially today and even over the weekend, that are pointing to maybe Cedric Coward being a guy that the Grizzlies could target at number 16, a guy that spent last year the limited time he was able to play at Washington State, but a wild story for him, a guy that kind of struggled in high school to make his varsity team, then goes to a Division III school to start his career, up to Eastern Washington, and then Washington State. He was committed to go and play at Duke if he had not stayed in the draft. So a guy that's taken a wild a ride to the NBA, but a guy that it sounds like his name will be called Wednesday night in the top 20. Tell us a little bit about Cedric Coward and the fit you think he would play for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, he's a riser. He's been rising up the draft boards. I think he was probably a late first, potential second guy when this process started. And that was a lot because of what you just said there. We're talking about a guy that played 6 games this past season. But I tell you what, based on what we saw, I mean, if he plays 26, 27, 30 games, we're not even having this conversation right now about the possibility of, I think he potentially goes higher than 16. We're potentially talking maybe top 10 pick if he gets the full season because he's a really good athlete, which you pretty much require out of most top 10 picks. You're talking about a 38-inch vertical. You're talking about a guy who has a 7'2" wingspan, 7'2.5" to be exact. So, yeah, he's 6'5.5" or so without shoes. But you put those shoes on, he's probably 6'6.5", 6'7", and then you're talking 7'2" wingspan. Now you're talking like some of the better wing defenders in the NBA territory who have those long arms, a la the Paul George, Kawhi type, Herb Jones, etc. Like that has kind of become, sort of an important factor in most really good defenders. Like Derek White, like he's 6'4", so to speak. He's not super tall, but those arms are very long, and that's how he blocks a lot of shots and things like that. But yeah, he has that. He has the ability to shoot the basketball. Again, small sample size, but we saw guys shoot over 50% from the field and 40% from three-point range. He was doing this at Eastern Washington on a smaller level. I think, look, he's a guy that a lot of teams like, and he makes sense when you look at the Grizzlies situation. You need a wing guy. We don't know if he's going to be a great defender just off what we've seen on film. But if you talk about the measurables and the athleticism, he has the makings of a guy that could really be good on that end. So I think right now, if you're saying, who's the favorite, who's the guy that you really would say, that's the Grizzlies did a good job if they select that 16. You talk about a guy who's probably ready to compete in the league right now. He's going to come in a little bit older, a little bit more mature probably. I think he crosses off a lot of those boxes.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about him, you mentioned missed a lot of time this year because of an injury. I saw ESPN earlier today did a mock draft, and they had Cedric Coward listed as the pick for the Grizzlies at 16. They talked about how he has already worked out for the Grizzlies, but in that workout, it was 1-on-0 because he is not yet ready for actual play. Do you know what that injury looks like on when he would be able to be back? Is this a guy that would be ready for the start of the season, or is this a guy that it maybe take longer and we wouldn't see him till later in the year?
Yeah, I poked around a little bit when I saw that, and I haven't heard like a lot on in terms of I don't think this is because it's a shoulder injury, right? Mm-hmm. And this is and we've seen the labeled tears with the Grizzlies. John Morant had that, and again he missed most of the season, so I think the expectation is that he'll be good and ready to go. I don't know if it's a situation where he's going to be held out of summer league and things like that. But I fully expect, based on what we know, is that he'll be ready to go by the start of the season.
Good. Who are some other names that you think will be there at that spot at 16 that you think would fit for the Grizzlies?
Man, I feel like one. It's this simple. Only wings are what I'm looking at. Like you kind of stockpile. When you talk about there's a lot going on. At guard, and there's a lot going on, and in the front court with Jaren Santi, Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Jay Huff, all these type of guys. Like I just don't think there are a lot of options there. But Cedric Coward, we just mentioned. Nick Clifford is another one that you talk about the first round pick. Mm-hmm. He makes a lot of sense to me. He rebounds the ball really, really good. Played at Colorado State, so Tiger fans are a little bit familiar with him.
Very familiar.
Yeah, right. If they end up trading back or something, or something, I like Drake Powell as like a guy who you could really buy into long term. He defensively, he has some really really good instincts, some of the best in the draft. Great athlete. Probably should have stayed at North Carolina another year. But if you're patient with him, which I think the Grizzlies would be, and you're going to get that. You're going to get that defender that could play the three for the Grizzlies. I fully expect him to be that type of guy. And, he shot the ball well at North Carolina, but his mechanics, you can tell, will need some adjustment, has a bit of a slow release. But, yeah, he works on that. You got a very premier 3-and-D guy. So those are three names: Cedric Howard, Nick Clifford, Drake Powell. They make a lot of sense to me first round. If you're talking second round, I like Kobe Bria out of Kentucky. Again, second round, I think you should really just focus in on specialists, right? Someone who's a great rebounder, someone who's a great shot blocker, someone who's a great shooter, someone who's a great playmaker. Find someone who is one of the best in the draft at something. Because if you're drafting a guy, well, he could be this, or he has the potential to be this in the second round, then there's probably a reason he's there in the second round. But I think Kobe Bria, the shooting, you can put him up there with anyone in the draft with some of the top picks. I mean, he shot it well in the A-10, then he goes to the SEC at Kentucky, and he's still shooting 43%, from three-point range. One of the best shooters in college basketball over the last 4 or 5 years. It's not being discussed enough, but I'm telling you, this team is not a good shooting team right now, the Grizzlies, that is, because you lose Desmond Bane, and Luke Kennard is very unlikely to return. I don't think Luke Kennard will be back. I've not heard anything that leads me to believe that he'll be back. So you're talking about losing your two most accurate and just pretty much two best shooters. And, we tend to forget now because, and I don't want to go on a long tangent here, but what happens a lot is when teams have problems, they overcompensate for correcting those problems, and then you create another problem in the process. And when shooting was a big problem for the Grizzlies, it was like, oh, let's go get Luke Kennard. But then you lost some of your luster with your perimeter defense, and now with Luke Kennard not being in the picture anymore, because you're aiming to get better perimeter defense, now you better hope that perimeter defender can shoot the basketball decently well. So it's like you create other problems by, that whole thing or whatever. But, I think shooting is something that they should really target in this draft as well as the perimeter defense.
Yeah, and I love that idea of Kobe Brea and what he could bring. I mean, that's another guy that's older, had spent a lot of time in college, and so I think a guy that would really fit what we've kind of seen in the past, what Zach Kleiman likes to really target in the draft. You mentioned some of that shooting, and now sounding like Luke Kennard might not be in the fold. It definitely seems like shooting will be an issue, at least with this roster right now. But I've heard a lot of people talking about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. It feels like he's going to be in the fold for the Grizzlies next year, and you look at those shooting numbers, a lot of people talking about 34.2% last year in Orlando, but you look before that, the 4 years prior to that, he never shot worse than 39% from three for a season. You look a little deeper into last year at Orlando, I believe it was either after the All-Star break or there was some point where starting in January, there was some point where his three-point shooting numbers started to go up. He looked better towards the end of the season. What do you make of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? Obviously, not a guy that I think, is ever going to be labeled as that knockdown three-point shooter, but what do you think of him coming in and maybe getting back to that three-point shooting like we've seen from him in years prior?
Well, the Grizzlies are for sure going to need it, right? Like what we talk about with the idea that they have to be a better shooting team over the course of the season. And I've seen, people point out those numbers like, oh, if you point back since January, well, if you go back from January on, he was pretty much around a 38-39% three-point shooter in that time frame. So I think, look, it's very realistic to expect him to kind of get back to the norm, but those numbers are really boosted by March and April, so to speak. Like March, and I think in March he shot 45% from three-point range. Then April it was 5-6 game sample size, but he shot 53% from. So it was really towards the end of the season, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope really started to find his footing, and you saw that just in his overall plus-minus numbers as well. I think in January and February, I remember looking at his numbers. He was a huge negative. for them. I think it was like negative 16.6, which is,
wow.
I'm pointing that out because some people have looked at that money and said, "Oh, that's when the turnaround came." And it's like, actually, no. That was his worst month, plus minus wise. But when you get to March and April, he was playing his best basketball of the season, which is got to be encouraging. Like if you're gonna go get a guy, he was playing his best basketball of the season. Again, I always go back to I call it the back of the baseball card. That's what we say in baseball. Like you look at the back of the card, you want to see what someone's capable of, and the back of the card is basically the bigger sample size. And in the case of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he's been to the NBA Finals. He's won, a couple championships. He's played alongside of Jokic. He's played alongside of LeBron. People like to say, "Oh, well, last season he didn't have Jokic or LeBron throwing him the ball." If you look at his open three-point percentage chances, he actually had similar volume. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like now I'm sure it's mental too. Like when you're playing with Jokic and LeBron, you prepare differently. Like that they're going to command so much attention, but at the same time, it seemed like he still got a bunch of shots that were considered good looks, so to speak. So I think he'll round back off. Closer to the 38-39% range, which would be great for the Grizzlies considering what he can do on the defensive end.
Absolutely. DeMichael, last thing for you before we let you go. Last week, some rumors started swirling around that the Detroit Pistons could be very interested in Santi Aldama, a guy that we've asked you about a lot. Certainly big decisions coming up this offseason around Santi Aldama. What'd you make of those reports that Detroit is interested in Santi Aldama, and what do you expect to see over the next couple of weeks involving the Grizzlies and Santi?
And that's a big one. That's a big one where you talk about the fact that the Grizzlies have the advantage and say, hey, we could talk to him right now, and then as soon as the window opens, boom, we already agreed to a contract. Now, if I'm Santi, would I do that? Probably not. But, the Grizzlies have that advantage to say, Santi, what do you want? What are you looking for? And if, I'm talking to Santi, and he has things that are important to him, and particularly like he wants to play winning basketball, it feels like. So I don't see him being one of those players. I mean, to be wrong, but I don't see him being one of those players that goes to a quote unquote bad team for a massive contract. And Detroit sounds like a good team that he could go play for. So I think there's something real there. But at the same time, the Grizzlies have interest in bringing Santi back, which is number one. And number two is the Grizzlies have the ability. As of right now, for all we know, they could be on the phone with them right now while I'm talking to you, Brian, saying, what do you want to, what kind of working through this thing over the next week, because they have that advantage, whereas other teams, you can't really say much to them yet. So I think I still expect, the Grizzlies to get that done if they want to, which all signs continue to point to that being the case, that they want to bring Santi back.
Yeah, well, it feels like it's going to be an eventful next couple of weeks for the Memphis Grizzlies, but we know it all gets started Wednesday night with the first round of the NBA draft. DeMichael, as always, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week. I know it's going to be busy with everything going on, and we'll talk to you again next Monday.
All right, take care, fellas.
Thanks, DeMichael. DeMichael Cole, he joins us every Wednesday from the Commercial Appeal. Go give him a follow on Twitter. Honestly, not a better follow if you want to keep up with what the Grizzlies are doing than DeMichael Cole at DeMichael C over on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. He joins us every week, the Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal. I believe actually next week going to be our last week with DeMichael before we kind of wrap it up, and we'll talk with him again closer to the start of the regular season. But we appreciate DeMichael being with us each and every week talking Grizzlies, and big decisions coming. Santi's going to be huge if you bring him back and what you want to do. I've seen some different things. I've seen that Detroit might go out there and just get him in free agency. I've seen maybe the opportunity for a sign-and trade. That would obviously be what do you get in return for Santi Aldama in that case. But, do the Grizzlies just say, we want Santi back? And obviously, I think if you're the Grizzlies, I personally think Santi plays a great role for this team, and I think if you're the Grizzlies, you want to have him back. But that, all of that goes into the question of what you do with him in the next couple of weeks once free agency opens. And we got a text earlier. I want to apologize to everyone that's texted in with everything going on this afternoon. It's been kind of hard keeping up with the text line, but Ron texted in. He said, if Boyles is available, Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina, if Boyles is available from South Carolina, I take him. Grizzlies need a forward. That's going to be something, Landon, that I think we will be watching Wednesday night in that first round. And obviously, it kind of depends on if you're the Grizzlies. Do you take, in your opinion, best available? Do you take best fit? What is your draft process philosophy like Wednesday night? But if the Grizzlies draft, DeMichael Cole says you take a wing. If you're just going for best fit, what you need, you go wing. If they go out there and go someone in the front court, then that might tell you a little bit of maybe they're looking to move Brandon Clark. Maybe they're either going to let Santi Aldama go, or they think he's going to get a better offer on free agency, or there's going to be some sort of sign and trade. Because right now, when you look at it, it could get a little messy because Zach Edey's going to miss the start of the season. But if you're just kind of looking at it, you've got Jaren Jackson Jr., you've got Santi Aldama, you've got Brandon Clark. I don't know if you want to add another forward to that room that's already very crowded. If you see them, if they go out there and take a forward in the first round, well, then that could tell you maybe there's some movement down the road for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a few people at the gym, and the topic of Santi Aldama came up because I remember like 2 years ago watching the Grizzlies. Santi was not that great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember going to the Grizzlies games and thinking, man, this guy needs to figure it out. Like he seems all over the place. He's not really performing. Then last year, it's like he took this huge step forward and was becoming a huge contributor for the team. So I think right now, if you're the Grizzlies, and me personally, I'd love to keep him. I think with what he did in that 1 year span, how he grew as a player, how he grew as a shooter. Like he was one of those guys that every time he went on the court, you're like, all right, there's a consistent dude who's going to go out and he's going to perform well. And you could almost kind of gauge with the Grizzlies saying, if he doesn't perform well, then all around we know there's kind of a problem going on here. Right. So I would love to see Santi Aldama stay here. I think he's a great contributor. I mean, the dude's pushing 7 feet tall. I mean, you can never go wrong with having that much size on the court. But with the strides that he made from 2 years ago till now, I think it would be kind of a blow to lose him, especially in a time like this.
Yeah, well, and you're right. I mean, he is definitely, you just look year after year, the way that he's improved, it has been fun to watch. But there's a lot of decisions coming for the Grizzlies, and I think a lot of moves to be made, but we'll see what happens Wednesday night. Obviously, we'll talk a lot more throughout the next couple of days of what the Grizzlies will do come draft night. We'll talk about this in the next segment, but I do want to talk a little bit, and we won't spend a lot of time on it because I do want to talk a lot of Kevin Durant and that trade that we saw yesterday. But the two-night draft for the NBA, I'm not a huge fan of it. We'll get to that a little bit, especially the way they're doing it this year. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it.
2 nights of television, maybe.
That is true. That is true. We'll talk about that in our next segment, as well as the Kevin Durant trade. But before we do that, let me remind you about our 5 o'clock sponsor. It's Jaguar Land Rover Bluff City. Jaguar Bluff City has been the premier Jaguar dealership for the greater Memphis area since 1984, and their talented team is ready to help you find your next perfect vehicle at unbeatable rates. Swing by Jaguar Land Rover Bluff City today and check out the new 2025 models like the 2025 Range Rover Sport, the 2025 Range Rover Velar, and the 2025 Defender. Test drive the Range Rover Sport, where luxury meets performance. It's a perfect mix of style, performance, and versatility, with options ranging from 360 horsepower up to 635. It's also available as a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle with $7,500 federal tax credit when leased with approved credit. Take a look at the Range Rover Velar, powered by mild hybrid technology and enhanced with the latest well-being features and fully connected entertainment system. The Range Rover Velar is the ultimate luxury compact crossover. Purchase yours today and get special 4.4% for 72 months financing available with approved credit. Don't forget about the Defender, available in multiple models to fit your needs. The Defender is built for the modern explorer, and Jaguar Bluff City is offering special interest rates for 60 and 72 months on various models. Give them a call, 877-259-6169. Go online to jaguarbluffcity.com, but head out there, test drive these vehicles. 6335 Wheel Cove, just off of Quince, for Bluff City Jaguar. Well, we need to get to another break, and when we return, we'll talk about what's trending.
Be sure to follow us at Sports56 WHBQ on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to watch live video of our shows. Stay up to date with station events and have chances to win prizes. Don't miss out on anything that's going on. Follow us at Sports56 WHBQ.
Since 1948, in the alley, the Rendezvous. I'm with John Burgess. John, what's going on in the Rendezvous?
Brett, after 76 years, we've decided to expand our product line. Anyone who's tasted our ribs is familiar with our vinegar base. It's now available in the 32-ounce jar. It's so good to base or marinate all meats. I even put a little bit on turnip greens. Something we've been using at the restaurant or at our house has been the Greek seasoning. My father was a cook, but my mother was a chef. And she was the one that put Greek seasoning on everything from a Mediterranean diet or steak. My mom used it on soup, salad, veggies, fish, any meat. It's a great seasoning and a flavor enhancer. My brother Nick figured out salt and pepper is more than just McCormick's and Morton's. He's come up with the perfect blend we use to coat our shoulders and our brisket, and he used to make it for his friends as Christmas gifts, and they loved it. All these products are available at Rendezvous or online for shipping as gifts and in many grocery stores. And if they're not in your favorite grocery store, ask your grocer to stock it.
A beloved family affair is still going strong since 1948. Rendezvous.
I'm Gary York. I'm the service director of Lexus in Memphis. Our service department wants to be more than just a place where you get your oil changed. We do glass repair, windshield replacement, recalibration of your camera and sonar systems, even wheel repair, tire replacement, all the things you would expect from a luxury automotive dealer. Please check out our website. You can schedule your appointment, check out our specials, hours of operation, or if you'd like to do it in person, please reach out to one of our associates at 901-271-5199.
Things you can do for your employees or family's health. Provide Arctic Clear bottled water. Arctic Clear bottled water is your locally owned and operated bottled water provider. Arctic Clear is 100% natural spring water with free delivery instead of dependable service and no long-term contracts. An easy choice. Call Jeff Menas today. 901-382-2363 or visit arctic-clear.com. Arctic Clear bottled water. Call them at 382-2363. That's 382-2363.
It's summer in the Mid-South and deals have never been hotter at Gossett Mitsubishi on the Pike. You'll find 0% for 36 months available on new 2025 Mitsubishi Outlander. Get 2024 Mitsubishi Mirage. Car and Driver rated #1 best non-hybrid electric fuel economy with 39 combined MPG. Buy Mirage, only $17,675. 2025 Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV plug-in hybrid, $299 a month with combined range of 420 miles. Beats Mazda CX-90's warranty and mileage. And 2025 Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, $28,480 or $349 a month. Plus peace of mind with 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. So get to Gossett Mitsubishi, 1870 Covington Pike and 24/7 at MemphisMitsubishi.com.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
MSRP 18175, PHEV SC 00173, MSRP 42615, Sport SU 06141, MSRP 28980, includes all rebates and incentives with 5691 down, excludes tax on a license. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through end of the month with approved credit dealer stock only.
Visit Frontier Western Store today for new shirts and boots. Frontier is your top Carhartt store in the Mid-South. There's thousands of in-stock shirts and jeans. They have the classic K87 pocket tee in every color they make, including new ones just released. Available small to 4X. Want new jeans? Frontier has you covered with super tough work denim by Carhartt. And you've got to check out their selection of area jeans for men, women, and children. You'll love how easy it is to find the size and style you need. Have you seen Frontier's remodeled world-famous boot showroom? It continues to expand. New styles by Area just arrived, plus plenty of in-stock proven classics too. Whether you need work or dress boots, trust that Frontier's the place to come. See thousands of pairs of Ariat boots and thousands more by Dan Post, Corral, Durango, Rocky, Twisted X, and others. And Frontier's pricing is lower than online and chain stores, so you know just the local shop to visit. Frontier Western Store, 5880 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, and on the web at frontierwesternstore.com. Locally owned and operated since 1967.
This traffic brought to you by Raleigh Tire Auto Service, your local family-owned business for over 60 years.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. It's just now starting to get a little bit busy. I-40 over here at Chelsea as traffic picks up 40 east from Sycamore View Road all the way out past Germantown Parkway. Still see some nasty storms to the south of Memphis. Could affect your drive down 55 as you head on down through certain parts of DeSoto County into Tate County. Again, looking at the weather radar, be very careful looking at these thunderstorms. Hey, Weimer's Jewelry, your diamond engagement ring headquarters this bridal season. Stop by and see them this week. You'll save a lot of money by shopping local at Weimer's Jewelry on Highway 64. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
This hour brought to you by Jaguar Land Rover
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant and Landon with you as we got about 30 minutes left in today's show. A couple things that I wanted to get to during What's Trending, but I want to start with the Kevin Durant trade from yesterday. We didn't get to talk a lot about this trade, but the trade that went down yesterday, we knew that it was coming soon. It officially went down yesterday. Shams Charania tweeting out yesterday, breaking, the Phoenix Suns are trading two-time NBA Finals MVP Kevin Durant to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the number 10 pick in the 2025 draft, and 5 second-round picks, sources tell ESPN. So obviously, huge win for Houston. We talked about it with DeMichael a little bit. For the Rockets to keep all of their young guys, keep their first-round picks for the future, only giving up this year's first round, that is a massive win for Houston. Now, I want to be very clear when I say this. I don't think this is a great haul coming back for Phoenix, but I don't think it is as bad as a lot of people are labeling it. And I'm seeing a lot of people comparing this trade to Desmond Bane and what the Grizzlies got back in that trade. I don't think those are similar at all on a lot of different reasons. Now, I agree Kevin Durant is one of the greatest players, one of the greatest scorers we've seen in the history of basketball, and that he should get a lot in return. But this was a franchise that was desperate in Phoenix. Everyone knew it. Every other general manager could smell that they were desperate to get rid of him. And when you look at Orlando and what they gave up for Desmond Bane, let's not forget 3 first-round picks. The 4th first-round pick came because Memphis took KCP's contract. If they had not taken Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's contract, it would have been 3 first-round picks, and not Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. It would have been, I guess, just Cole Anthony. But they did, and they got the first-round pick because of it. So really 3 first-round picks. And you look at it, I think Jalen Green can be a phenomenal player in the NBA. Obviously, everyone's going to point out his struggles in the playoffs, which were apparent. They were there. But the regular season, he was really good. I think he can be a great player. If Phoenix values that in return, he's still a very young player. That's basically a first-round pick in return, getting him. You get the 10 pick this year, and you get a bunch of second-round picks that you can deal and turn into something. So I don't think it's a horrible deal for Phoenix. I don't think it's a great deal. I have questions about you've got to move one of those guys that you just got back in a trade, because I do not think you can have all of those shooting guards on the same team. So I think there are more moves from this. But in terms of Houston, to get a guy like Kevin Durant that still at, all the talk is that he's going to be 37 in September, I think it's phenomenal, because he is still the same scorer he has been, shooting over, he's averaging like 27 points a game. He's shooting over 50% from the field. He's shooting over 40% from 3. He is still a super efficient scorer. And to be able to put that with some of your young pieces, some of those big pieces that they have in Houston, I think really makes this Houston team scary this year and going forward until Kevin Durant ultimately, and we'll see if he agrees on an extension after this year. That was another thing. The biggest thing from this trade, I tried to get all of that out of the way to say, my biggest takeaway from this trade is what an awful job Phoenix did from the very beginning with this trade. Because let's go back all the way to the trade deadline, where they said, we got to make a change. This big 3 that we've got right now is just not working. We've got to move somebody. Bradley Beal, you're up. We're getting you out of here. Bradley Beal goes, I'm not going anywhere. I've got a no-trade clause. Unless it's a place I want to go to, we don't have a deal. Well, they say, okay, well, we got to move somebody. All right, I guess, Kevin, you're next. Kevin Durant, we're getting you out of here. But we're going to work with you because we're not going to make a trade to a place that you don't want to go to. So the Warriors said, we want you. No, I don't want to go. I don't want to go back to Golden State. DeMichael Cole said that the Grizzlies at least talked about a move to try to go get Kevin Durant at the trade deadline. He kind of said, no, I don't really want to be in Memphis. So he really said at the trade deadline, I don't want to go to these places. Okay, the Suns keep him. We're going to move you in the offseason. Made it clear at the trade deadline, we are moving him in the offseason. Then we get to the offseason, and they make it very clear, we want to move him by the draft. By draft night, we want him on a different team. So now they're saying, okay, well, we have this deadline of where we want him to be traded. Now, you can go. They kind of walked that back. I know there was a lot of reporting done. I think it was Brian Windhorst on ESPN that said they could keep him through the NBA draft. But they made that very clear that they had this deadline. They also made it very clear that we're working with Kevin Durant to try to find his destination. So instead of having every team line up across the NBA to say, we want to make an offer for Kevin Durant, it was about, 5 or 6 teams that lined up and said, we have an offer for Kevin Durant. And out of those 5 or 6 teams, there were really 3 teams that he wanted to go to. You look at those 3 teams, Houston, where he eventually went, San Antonio, and Miami. Well, now we've seen a lot of reports that Miami didn't want to give up anybody, which is insane. They didn't want to give up anybody for Kevin Durant. San Antonio, I don't know what that would have looked like, but I think it's safe to say a lot of their young talent that they have, they didn't really want to give up. And then you've got Houston. And I think it's a very serious question to say, if you're one of these teams, do you really want to give up your young talent and, send all of that away for Kevin Durant that's going to be 37, even if he re-signs with you? How many more years does he have? He's phenomenal right now, but does he play 2 more years? Does he play 3 more years? Is that it? Does he play 1 more year, 2 more years, and then calls it quits? Are you really going to get the return on sending all of your young talent out for 2 years of him? I think it's a good question. And so you kind of get down to the point where it's only a couple teams that he wants to play at. There's only a couple teams that are then interested in him. And so I think Houston was able to say, you're desperate. You've got to do something. There are not a lot of great offers out there. He's telling you he don't want to play at these places, and you have said, well, we're going to send you somewhere you want. Here's what we're going to offer you. Yes or no? And kind of Phoenix felt like, at least, they felt the heat and said, all right, let's do it. Let's make it happen, and did the deal. I don't think it's a terrible deal for Phoenix, but like I said to start the show, if you're telling me who won this trade, who lost this trade, very easily, Houston won the trade, Phoenix lost the trade.
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word heat because heat was also a preferred destination there. And I heard a lot of talk on ESPN today of how disappointed people are that the Heat didn't make more of a play for Kevin Durant. They were breaking down the Heat's roster. You got Bam Adebayo, you got Andrew Wiggins, Tyler Hero. You have those 3 guys who are working together really well. The Heat's a really solid team. You have the addition of Kevin Durant to that team, and that just elevates them to a whole nother level. So I think the big question is now that Kevin Durant is a Rocket, are they instant NBA final contenders?
That's a good question. They were the, number 2 seed in the
I know
Western
that their
Conference?
odds since the trade have increased pretty substantially, but are we talking make a good playoff run or NBA Finals? Because if we've learned anything from this past offseason with the coaches' firings, with the trades of the players, all that kind of stuff, it's that people aren't satisfied with just playoff runs or Western Eastern Conference Finals. They want NBA Finals. They want appearances. They want championships. So I got to feel like the Rockets making this trade helps them to get to the NBA Finals because that's what people want and that's what they want to see.
Yeah, I think it does. I think, at the very least, the goal should be now for Houston to be pushing for a Western Conference Finals. Because you add a guy like Kevin Durant that can score at will. You've got a lot of young players that you think are going to improve. You've got a guy, down low that I think you can really rely on. And so they have pieces. They have a phenomenal coach. I think we got to mention Ime Udoka.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Who was pivotal in making this trade happen, and a couple other coaches on that coaching staff were pivotal going to the front office and saying we've got to have Kevin Durant on this team. And so I think if those guys improve, if they can continue to develop, and you bring in Kevin Durant and he can play at the level that he showed even last year that he can still play at, I think they're in a great spot and could really make a run. You mentioned the Heat. We talked about the Heat, guys that they were not going to give up in this trade. It was reported Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez, and Haywood Highsmith were all completely off the table, and their first-round pick for this year were all completely off the table. Haywood Highsmith averaged 6.5 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, and 1.5 assists, shooting 45.8% from the field this season and 38% from 3. He is 28 years old. Jaime Jaquez at 24 averaged 8.6 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists per game, 46.1% from the field, and 31% from three. And Nikola Jovic averaged 10.5 points per game, 3.9 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists per game, shot 45.5% from the field, and 37.1% from three. I like some of these guys. Like, I love Nikola Jovic. I think he's going to be a really good player. Jaime Jaquez is fine. Like, you're telling me those were all non-negotiable? Like, you weren't getting off of any of those guys for Kevin Durant? I just, I don't.
I think there's a reason why we're not in charge of the
Maybe.
Heat. There has to be something else there.
Hey, I was listening to a podcast from Miami today, and they were livid that Haywood Highsmith was a guy that was untouchable
And not
for
negotiable.
Kevin Durant. 28 years old, and but he's the one. Like, I remember either last year or the year before reading, like reports out of Miami and people being like, he's next. Like, he's been developing. He's been in the G League. He's been great. Yada yada yada. And so I guess maybe they still think that he's gonna be a big factor for them. I don't know. I would have shipped him very quickly for Kevin Durant. But again, you're right. We are not in. That's why we're not general managers. And also, look, I do think, like, a serious thing, Kevin Durant's an unbelievable player. He's a great player. I've said it multiple times. If the Grizzlies went out to try to get him, I would love to have Kevin Durant on my team.
Who wouldn't?
He's, like, by far one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. But I do think it is a very serious thing to say, like, we have to take into consideration he's going to be 37 years old when the NBA season starts next year. And do we want to give up young players for a guy that might not even re-sign with us? Again, this is last season on his deal. You got to get an extension in there. Might not even re-sign with us. But even if he does re-sign with us, how many more years are we going to get out of him? 2, 3? I mean, I do think that was a legitimate reason why he did not get better trade offers and why this trade deal is not what a lot of people expected.
I think with that, you're also venturing into the territory of how close do you relate LeBron and KD's game, because LeBron at 40 years old was still balling out. Right. I mean, he's still performing very well for you. Obviously, he's nearing the end of his career. He could be retiring here in a year or two. Don't fact check me on that. It's not even a prediction. I just think that's what's going to happen. So I guess it's the question of, do you think KD's going to be that kind of player to go till he's 40 and maybe a little bit past that? Because if not, then the clock's ticking already, being about to be 37 years old. But I guess it's that question of, would you want to have somebody like that who is planning on playing that late and can still perform to the level he is? Because I remember hearing Stephen A. Smith mention how his numbers in his 30s, KD's, were better than they were when he was in his 20s. Yeah. So, and not saying that the next few years he's just going to be substantially better and he's just going to be, the top dog all-star on the court. But he is still going to perform night in, night out for you. So I guess it's that question of how closely do you relate KD and LeBron's game?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question, and I think injuries, are a factor in that as well. We've seen, Kevin Durant, both guys, be a little injury prone the past couple of years. So definitely a massive trade. I didn't know we were going to talk this long about it.
It's trending.
But definitely a big trade in the NBA. But we are late for our final break. When we come back, we're going to wrap up today's show with Mo's Crunch Time.
We are real sports talk. Sports 56 WHBQ. Available on your radio dial at 560 AM and 98.5 FM, as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Sports 56 and 95 FM.
Share with us why you chose Town Village. Well, if your parents or special friends need to make that big move, let me share with you my experience. It was tough for me to leave home, but then I discovered Town Village. I would like to highly recommend Town Village to you and your loved ones. After looking at all the amenities and meeting all the people and staff, I was hooked.
Bike home, town, village.
Air. We breathe it naturally. Simple, right? Not so fast. The air you breathe could be hazardous to your health. Don't guess. Be sure with a phone call to the Memphis Mold Inspector, the only licensed mold assessor in the Mid-South. Call the Memphis Mold Inspector to check the air quality inside your home or office. Call 901-292-7788 for clean air and peace of mind. 901-292-7788 or visit MemphisMoldInspector.com.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? Well, they're not hard to find when you go to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. People who are actively looking for jobs like yours. So it's easy to find the right person fast. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Unleash the power. Make every mile count in your new Volkswagen from Gossett Volkswagen on the bike. Available right now, 2025 Jetta SN 2025 Taos, 4.9 for 60 months. 2025 Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport, 3.9% for 60 months. And 1,500 loyalty rebate on all 2025 GTIs, Jettas, Taos, Tiguan's Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport. Plus 5,000 off 2024 Atlas Cross Sport SELR line. But only 2 left, so you better hurry to Gossett Volkswagen. 1875 Covington Pike or online anytime at GossettVWMemphis.com. That's Gossett, charging forward and charging less every day. If you want it, we got it at Gossett Volkswagen.
Details 2024 Atlas RC 226135, MSRP 51733, RC 227219, MSRP 52133. Must finance through Volkswagen Credit. Includes all rebates and incentives. PF 895 excludes tax title and license. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through end of the month. Approved credit dealer stock only.
Crunch Time is brought to you by Moe's Southwest Grill. Need catering? Moe's Taco Truck is always ready to cater for you. Just give Jenny Nash a call at 901-606-3172. Moe's.com is your go-to for all your taco Crunch Time emergencies.
This is pretty cool, and we're just getting started, so.
Spanning the globe.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
This is for all the biggest Crunch Time.
You are looking live. In your life have you seen anything like that? Goodbye! Hello, Haskell.
It's obviously Crunch Time.
Hammer, nail, coffin. This baby is over.
Crunch Time is brought to you by Moe's Southwest Grill. Need a country bite to eat? Head to Moe's for nachos, crunch wraps, tacos, salads, and more. Moe's.com is your go-to for all your taco crunch time emergencies. Well, Landon, what I learned today, this actually comes from our Sissy's Log Cabin listener line. Jethro texted in earlier. Jethro, thanks for the text. He gave us a little bit of an update, a football update. 39 days till the NFL Hall of Fame game. Only 60 days till college football. We're almost there.
We're inching closer.
Keep holding on. We're getting closer and closer, and we always talk about it. This year with the preseason, the NFL preseason, we're going to be watching a lot of those games with Seth Hennigan down in Jacksonville.
A lot of Steelers football.
A lot of Steelers football.
Yeah.
A lot of Giants football as well. I mean, people in this area are going to be watching NFL preseason because there is a lot of local flavor on a lot of NFL teams.
Yeah, absolutely. What I learned today, back in June 20th, the USA had an incredible win. The FIBA Women's Under-16 America, USA defeated Panama by a score of 131 to 12.
Oh, wow.
So
how about that?
They went on a roll that game. That has to be one of the biggest blowout wins I've ever heard in my entire life. It's fantastic.
It's got to be. What I could have done without today, it's the injury to Tyrese Halliburton, his torn Achilles. You felt like it was heading in that direction when you saw the injury, but then to see the official news from Shams this morning, it's just a brutal blow for the Pacers. We know with Jason Tatum, we've talked about it a lot since that injury to him. We talked about it on Thursdays as well, that, it sounds like he's going to be out, maybe could be back before the postseason next year, but really, do you want to throw him in there during postseason play? It feels like the same timeline for Tyrese Halliburton. If the Pacers are back in a spot for the postseason, do you really want to throw your star player in there that soon? I just don't know. It feels like we're going to see him miss an entire year of play, which is just awful to hear.
Yeah, I could have done without the exact same thing. You watch the slow-mo, you see the pop. That's just... I'm pretty sure everybody, when they watched the slow-mo, gave a little ooh as they were watching it. You never want to see it, and Tyrese Halliburton knew the instant it happened. Screaming no, I would venture to guess, not just because of the pain, but because of what that meant for the game, what that meant for him having to go out the way that he did in the NBA Finals. And not only just what it does there, but what it does going forward, how it's going to change the trajectory of what the Pacers look like next year. And you hate to see something like that, but prayers for a recovery and prayers for him and his family.
Yeah, no, he definitely knew what that meant for both him and his team. Where are you beaming tonight?
Beam me to Citi Field, baby. We finally make our return. The Mets got to get back on track, man. We have one win in the past 9 games. It's not looking pretty for us right now, but a return to Citi Field against the Braves. John Harden took the Braves in his betting earlier in his show.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm feeling there's a little bit of a turnaround happening, so beam me to Citi Field.
All right, well, beam me to St. Louis. Cardinals at home against the Cubs. We know one of the great sports rivalries in Major League Baseball. It should be a lot of fun. Hopefully the Cardinals, Matthew Liberatore on the mound. He's been all right this year. He's been pretty good this year, but you look at that record, 4-6. We'll see if he can get the job done tonight against the Cubs. Only 9 games in Major League Baseball. We've kind of gotten to the slow part of the year now with really only Major League Baseball in play. Didn't even talk about the College World Series today. Shout out to LSU.
Good job,
getting
LSU.
It done
Close it out.
2-0 over Coastal Carolina. But that's all the time we have this afternoon. Enjoy your night. We'll talk to you again tomorrow afternoon.
Hi, I'm Troy Five Ash with